Minutes.
So
Motion.
moved. Oh,
May I have a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Tonight, we have, Ms. Becker is here to, hello, to present the Community Service Award. So would you like to come up to the microphone?
Okay, for those who don't know me, I'm Elaine Becker, and I'm chair for the Community Service Award Committee. Oh, can you hear me?
Is that on? Yes.
Is that better?
Is it? Yes.
We are 7 members, but only 3 of us could, or no, not one of us, that would be me. Apparently, the other 2, I thought, no, Corey's here. No, not Corey, but that's it, I guess. I was expecting 2 other people, but anyway, I'm here. We are pleased to recommend to the Township Committee, the Millburn Short Hills 4th of July Committee, to receive the Community Service Award this evening. This will be the 86th award over the past 30 years, recognizing amazing volunteers in our community. In Millburn Township, our nation's Independence Day is celebrated the whole day, from the raising of the American flag to the fireworks after dark. All of the festivities are arranged and organized by the 14 members of the Millburn Short Hills 4th of July Committee, and with the help of, I think it's more than 100 other volunteers throughout the community. So it's my pleasure to introduce Corey Biller, President of the Millburn Short Hills 4th of July Committee, to receive the Community Service Award. A member of the Township Committee, which is Diane Eglow, I believe.
Yes.
The committee woman, Diane, she will read the proclamation for you.
I'll read it, and then you'll say a few words and share some information. Would be wonderful. Whereas the Millburn Township Committee values the contributions of volunteers and volunteer organizations in the township and recognizes outstanding volunteer efforts that reflect the giving spirit of our community and enhances our quality of life. Whereas the Millburn Short Hills July 4th Committee, a nonprofit 501c3 organization, was established in 1950 to promote and celebrate our nation's Independence Day by providing games, food, music, fireworks, and fanfare for the township's children and adults, relatives and friends, all of which is made possible by the support of local residents and businesses. Whereas the Millburn Short Hills July 4th Committee raises the American flag at Taylor Park every July 4th and presents the Patriots Award to a deserving resident in recognition of outstanding service to the Township of Millburn, which is memorialized with his or her name on the plaque at the entrance of Taylor Park. And whereas current members of the Millburn Short Hills July 4th Committee are Corey Biller, President, James Crawford, Treasurer, Jess Berkowitz, Paul Graves, James Kasdan, Michael Miggins, Nick Romano, Mike Safer, Ellen Ceruto, Jamie Ceruto, Jeremy Sokop, Jonathan Sim, Gary Williams, and Philip Zimmerman, in addition to about 100 others throughout the township who volunteer each year, including those from Millburn Police Department, Millburn Fire Department, Millburn Public Works Department, Millburn High School, Millburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad, Guy R. Bosworth American Legion Post 140, Scouts BSA Troops 15, 17, 19, as well as many township businesses. Now therefore, Mayor Prupas, Mayor of Township of Millburn, on behalf of the Millburn Township Committee and members of the Millburn community, on this day, 18th day of May 2021, applaud the sterling efforts of the Millburn Short Hills Committee, 4th of July Committee, and the many volunteers who provide Independence Day festivities every July 4th to the delight of thousands of people. So, I will share this with you.
Thank you. Since the camera's that way,
Yes.
community's that way, I'll go for this way. First of all, thank you to the Township Committee and the Community Service Committee as well for this honor. It is really a very much a group effort. We have the other representative of our committee here with us today, but it really, as Committee Person Eglow said, it's a community event. We do it every year for the love of celebration in our community, and something that the community doesn't really even know, I believe, is that we are a group of purely volunteers who do this. For the most part, the Township Committee celebration, or the 4th of July celebration, is not a township necessarily a sponsored event. It's coordinated and fundraised through just a 501c3 committee, which is us, and volunteers. And so, you know, one thing that we want to sort of, first of all, promote this year is that we're going to do things a little bit differently this year. We're getting back to normal to some extent, but we're also going to recognize that there still is some concerns about COVID, especially amongst young children who aren't vaccinated. So this year's activities, we're going to do the flag raising again like we do every year, even last year. We're also going to do the presentation of the Patriot Award, which this year we're giving to an organization, the Ed Foundation, the Millburn Ed Foundation, for all of their tireless work for our community and our schools, and in particular during COVID, and the technology that they were able to give to our schools and our children so they can thrive during these difficult times. And then after that, we're going to do something a little different this year. We're going to actually have the family activities right after the flag raising from 10 to 12 in Taylor Park again. So it used to be in Taylor Park. We're going to have it back in Taylor Park, but this year it's going to be different. And instead of having sort of rides and things that kids are going to climb on and get lined up for and get close to, we're going to have a stage set up with a magician and then Revolutionary War reenactment. And then we're going to also have sidewalk chalk set up throughout the park so that every kid or a bunch of people can get together and draw patriotic sidewalk chalk on the whole Taylor Park. And then we're going to have a scavenger hunt with patriotic, glow-in-the-dark flags, all that kind of stuff that kids can wear at night at barbecues and hopefully for the July 4th fireworks. And then, so that'll end at 12. We'll have a little break. And then we're going to kick things up like we always do at night with the full fireworks display this year. We're going to have the fireworks display with music going to it. We're going to have food trucks. We're going to have scream trucks. So two ice cream trucks. It's a custom ice cream truck. And then hot dogs, hamburgers, a food truck with like all American hot dogs, hamburgers, French fries, and all that kind of stuff. So we're hoping, last year we had to do things a little bit different with COVID. And we had the little mini parades coming to you, but this year we're trying to ramp up back to normal. But we need the community support because all of this is done through sponsorships, donations, and then ticket sales. So if you're interested in ever joining our committee, you can go to our website or Instagram or any of the social media. Let us know. We'd love to have more members on the committee, but we need daily event volunteers, which really is just about sort of helping coordinate all the activities throughout the day. And then for all the local businesses, you know, we'd love your support. We know that this last year has been particularly difficult, but if there's any amount that you feel that you can donate and become a sponsor of the event, you get signage on the high school for a full week, and you just become part of the community. So that's a lot to say, but I think the township should know about that. We're going to get back to having fun this year and celebrating our independence, and we look forward to seeing everyone out there. So thank you again, and sure, guys, you want to come on up? So go ahead if you want to just say your
Sure.
name.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming, and please come out on the 4th of July. I'm Jim Kasdan.
Hi, Michael Cipher. I'm actually a past president of the committee. I've been on for about 10 years now. It's a lot of fun. You know, we need another generation of young families to just keep coming out, bring their kids, join the committee. It's a great day, and it's a lot of fun. So, that's it.
I'm Jim Kofer, I'm the treasurer.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Sokup. I'm the newest member. I'm looking forward to it.
Wait, may I, Corey, add one thing? I was reminded, and I don't know if people are aware of this, that fireworks cost $1,000 a minute.
Yes.
And Millburn gives a full 30-minute show. So all of you out there, do the math. It's a lot of donations are so, so important. So, Corey, if somebody wants to make a donation, how would they do that?
I think we do, Jim, you want to?
Treasurer?
Jim, our treasurer, will explain.
Yeah, if you go to our webpage, there's a link to our PayPal, and that's one way you can do it, or you can send us a check to P.O. Box 4 in Short Hills, 07078, and that's the other way.
And like I mentioned, we are a 501c3, so to the extent you do want to make a contribution, it is tax deductible.
What is the website?
I'm not sure. You can Google it.
Who do they make the checks out to?
The Millburn Short Hills July 4th Committee. That I know.
And P.O. Box 4 is pretty easy to remember?
Yes, it's
In
been around a
Millburn.
while.
Yeah.
P.O. Box 4 in Millburn or Short Hills?
Short Hills.
Short Hills,
Oh, Short Hills.
07078.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to reports.
Thank you, Ms. Baker.
Thank you, Mayor Becker.
So the Sign Ordinance Review Subcommittee met yesterday on May 17th, and we're working on a community survey that will be going out shortly. The Taylor Park Entrance Revitalization Subcommittee is continuing to work on the scope for an RFP for a landscape architect. Our next meeting is tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Two-Way Traffic Investigation Subcommittee is scheduled to meet on Friday, May 21st, to review the traffic report that we are planning to present to the Township Committee on June 6th. Fred Layton, a member of the Board of Recreation, has moved. Thank you, Fred, for your service, and his seat is now empty. If you'd like to serve on the board, please fill out a volunteer interest form and email it to our town clerk, Christine Gaddy. The Environmental Commission is collaborating with the Short Hills Garden Club to help fund the Whittingham Triangle Pollinator Garden, which was designed by Mark Robeson and team. And the EC is hosting a home efficiency webinar, which will likely be the week of June 6th. The township will let people know when that's happening. And I just want everyone to know that we've now diverted over 6,000 pounds of organic food waste from our garbage with the composting pilot. And yeah, so more news on that at the next meeting. The next DPW redevelopment subcommittee meeting is on May 27th, and we are working on a public engagement plan. So more information about the redevelopment site, plenty of information will be put out to the public. And that concludes my report. Committee Women Eglo.
Okay. Thank you. So the joint 911 dispatch, we met, I guess, last week, is fully employed. Springfield will be joining our joint 911 on June 1st. That would be their EMS and fire will be dispatched through the joint 911, not their police. They will pay a one-time $21,000 initiation fee and $100,000 a year. They will not have a seat at the board, thus they will not be voting or be part of our decision-making. According to their expected call volume, the center will not require an additional dispatcher. However, this will be reviewed after 1 year. 2 new physical stations are almost done, so the center will be at full capacity to which it was designed and intended for. Nomad system is fully ready. If for any reason the center loses power, there will not be a loss of capability or disruption. There's a fully secure backup system in all 3 towns that can be brought up immediately. So it's important to know that this is a lot of constant upgrades to technology, and this is a 100% essential service for our townships. It may seem expensive if you pull it out of the township budget, but there are huge cost savings by having this as a shared service. And in the fall, they're going to come to our TC meeting and give everybody a presentation of all the services that they provide. Thank you.
Great.
Elaine would like a picture. Okay.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am, could we just take a fast picture
Sure.
here so we can put it on some website?
Of course, of course. Would you like the whole committee to come into the picture, or how would you like, or just the?
What do you want?
Just them? Oh,
4th of July, guys.
all right, you put them where you want them, and you
How
take your
about put
picture.
them in front of the thing?
Well, maybe they can do they want to stay?
Elaine, how about in front of the board?
This is your substitute, plaque that we couldn't get done. So
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess in case anyone needs to go to the bathroom.
Great idea.
Is it great?
Yeah, you should balance this picture.
Congratulations.
Can they do friendly firecrackers?
I don't.
Should look in that.
We don't have to?
All right, here we go. Good. Wait, were you not holding the, oh, wait, we have to take the proclamation.
Thank you.
Yeah, got it.
Mayor, give us 5 minutes, I think we're
we all
Mayor
first?
Becker just said that she would like it just to be the committee.
No, we're good, Mayor.
You're good, Mayor. Sure, we do committee, let's go take one with the 4th of July committee. Everybody up. What a great idea.
We need a bigger room.
While they're wearing a mask, right? I mean, it's just.
Oh, well, gee whiz, I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
maybe us short. In front, and you guys.
Maybe integrate, let's all integrate together.
Sure. Hey there, how are you?
I'm well. Nice to see you.
Come on in, please.
Can you get us off?
Elaine Becker. I left the boss at home, sorry.
All right, here we go.
Thank you. All right, fabulous. Thank you all for all of your service. Thank you.
It's an open-ended question.
Years ago, I'm talking about 20-some odd years ago, I used to be Morris Bay, we had a business. Yeah, we still have those, yeah.
They're my years of those, they're collect-
I gave you that
Thank you very much.
29 years ago.
And it's really, they don't make them like that anymore. Thank you.
No, it's on the website.
I don't know why I thought it was.
Well, I just meant, like, if it was.
All right, we're going to resume the meeting. So, Committeewoman Miggins, are you ready to report?
Ms. Megan's ready to report. Yes, ma'am. I have two reports. One has to do with the library. We had our meeting last evening. Just so everyone's aware of this, the library's going to be undergoing renovation, so they are going to close in July, end of July, and be closed throughout the summer, probably through October. They're going to be closed for about 4 months. So we're trying to find a pop-up library area for them within the town, within the community. So the director of the library is looking at different spaces for a pop-up library. So if anyone knows of any commercial space that would be willing to rent for 4 months, make sure you reach out to the library director. And it will be back up and running by at least Election Day. It will have to be back up and running by, so say November 1st. But just so everyone's aware, I don't think most people are aware, we'll be closing down for at least 4 months. So they are looking for space to just have that little pop-up library. And then also, I'm thrilled, of course, we're having our Memorial Day Parade this year. We didn't get to have it last year because of COVID. So that will be on Saturday, the 29th of May. And we'll start, we're going to start at the old Wells Fargo, and we're going to march down Millburn Avenue, over Whittingham, into the park where there'll be a ceremony. And we always have a Grand Marshal. This year, our Grand Marshal is going to be the Millburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad. They've done such tremendous work throughout this, pandemic, and we're so pleased with them. And they are a volunteer, so that's who we will be honoring this year at the Memorial Day Parade. So please do come out. It will start at 10 a.m., as I said, and kicking off right at the old Wells Fargo building. And if you're participating, please do show up at the old Wells Fargo building and around 9:30 with your group, and off we'll go. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Fabulous, thank you. Deputy Mayor Wasserman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I have a couple reports. Committeeman Vinayak and I hosted a meeting with Roger Askin from the high school about internships for a lot of our local students. And we had actually a very productive meeting. And I'm really hoping that we could find some job training and internships for some of our local kids, and potentially in town hall or in some of or even with some local businesses. So we're working on that, and I think that's going to be really an exciting opportunity for our kids. Also, we want to encourage all residents to shop local and stay local this summer. We have a lot of exciting plans. For instance, this Saturday, Explore Millburn is hosting live music near the Boxcar. You should check on social media for details. There should be live music around all of our districts during the summer. So consider staying local and having some fun in town. Aside from that, I also want to give a shout out to Paper Mill in the Park, which is a joint venture between the Paper Mill and CETA. That's on June 27th between 1 and 2:30 in Taylor Park. That's going to be really exciting to have some paper mill to have a great paper mill show in the park, and it's free, and I think our residents are going to really enjoy it. Also, for restaurant owners, there is Explore Millburn is available to help local restaurants who are interested in getting an SBA grant. There's a restaurant revitalization fund from the SBA. I know that Explore Millburn is working with our local restaurants, and people are encouraged to reach out if they need help filling out the forms. And aside from that, that's basically my report.
Great. Committeeman Vinayak.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended REC. I'm on the REC Commission as a liaison to Township. They are still looking for library, to light the library field and looking for donations. This has become a project now, so they will be reaching out and doing some events to get donation and put probably a naming rights if there is enough donation donated for that project. Total project just for the lighting is about $275,000. And if you're interested, reach out to Bob Hogan at rhogan@millburntown.twp.org. There is also, as Mayor said earlier, a REC board member. There's a seat available. If you're interested in, please do apply so we can fill that seat up. And we had also, since I'm on the REC board and also the joint committee for the REC and Board of Ed for the fields, we had that meeting as well. And again, we are field poor, and I've heard that so many times. We are going to be looking, or at least doing some work on figuring out the space that has leaf compost at JFK Expressway. We will try to figure it out to have some part of that used for DPW, some part of that as field, and then also possible if we can put the cell phone towers that we spoke about. So we are going to see what all can fit in. So that's the conversation, ongoing conversation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Falcon. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. As I think I may have reported the last time, the mediation of affordable housing is in an active set of meetings. There was a meeting last Thursday. There was a mediation session today. There will be one next Monday, and then there'll be a further session on June 3rd. As the special master reminds us at the commencement of each of these sessions, there are no binding commitments made in favor of active and free negotiations, and that all of the discussions in the mediation proceedings are confidential. The parties are submitting to Judge Gardner for an extension of the township's immunity. I expect that he'll do something about that in the upcoming week, and that I'll be in a position to tell you about that when the judge puts pen to paper at the meeting of June 1.
Thank you, Mr. Falcon. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just have two brief reports. One is to bring closure to a discussion that was had at the Township Committee meeting a few times regarding a speed hump in Lot 14, otherwise known as Jarvis Lane. As I had reported before, we asked DPW to replace the speed humps that were taken from that lot as a result of, they take them up for the winter so that the plows don't damage them, and they return 2 speed humps to that. I investigated a little bit further, found that in 2018 on a Google Street View that there were only 2 speed humps in that lot. However, I've been continuing to have conversation with Ms. Urso, who owns a business in that area and has concerns over the safety there, and spoke to DPW, who is looking for what they feel. They have a third temporary speed hump that they take the many pieces and put it together. So if we have that in storage, as they suspect we do, we'll make sure that gets placed in that lot. I just wanted to bring closure to that so that the committee is aware. Also wanted to just offer a brief report on the double parking issue by the Millburn Deli. This continues to be sort of one of those difficult situations as there's a lot more Uber Eats or Grubhub drivers in and around the area. A lot of people are just running in and picking up from the deli. There is a double parking problem there. We're going to continue to ask our residents not to double park. If it is them, many of them are visitors. I do know that, or they're these drivers for the food delivery services. For the time being, we are stepping up enforcement, particularly those individuals that are having someone down there to walk around and move cars along if they are causing an issue and double parking, potentially giving tickets to those individuals who are double parked and do not move. We do have a solution in place that we will place concrete blocks within those parking spaces to take the dead lane and make that parking instead of the parking spaces. It's not necessarily a situation that we want to get into, but we are prepared to do that with the concrete blocks that are that we are using for parklets. I think right now we're going to step up enforcement, but if those blocks go in those spaces, I don't want anybody to be surprised. This is a good temporary solution to an issue that, should it not work, can easily be removed. But we need to do something over in that area. It causes some issues with cars turning left onto Millburn Avenue. It also is causing an issue for sightlines to other businesses, blocking driveways, things like that. It's just it's a popular area, and we're happy for that. But we need to make sure that we're taking steps to address these things.
Perfect, thank you. There's a few other things that I think for you to report on. Main Street closure.
Oh, yes, Mayor. Yeah. My apologies. So we are adjusting the Main Street closure. This is based on the fact that we have seen an uptick in traffic and with schools and more people going to in-person schooling. So we've adjusted the closure to be on Friday afternoons instead of Thursday afternoons. And we are going to do the full closure of Main Street for the summer on June 24th. That will last to August 30th, and that will provide a great space for outdoor dining and restaurants and activation of the town. But we want to make sure that we're cognizant and flexible of the shifting situation, and we do see a little uptick in traffic and want to be cognizant of that as well.
Great, I have 3 more things.
Sure, I'm ready.
We had our parking ad hoc meeting, so can you talk about the commuter parking change
Yes.
a little bit?
We are looking to adjust to the commuter lots a little bit more flexibility for all-day parking. Currently in Lot 9, which is the library lot, there is all-day parking offered to our residents. If you have a resident sticker, you can pay $10 for the day to commute into New York City or wherever you may be going on the train line. Obviously, that parking lot is a little bit out of the way, and our current commuter parking lots are not being utilized. We are going to make an adjustment to allow for additional all-day parking spaces in Lot 7, which is the main Millburn train station commuter lot. That is our initial focus. We will also be looking at Lot 3, which is the main Short Hills train station commuter lot, and see whether we can have pay stations installed there. But certainly in Lot 7, pay stations will be installed to allow for all-day parking, so our residents with a resident sticker can park in a space, pay all day, and go into the city to add flexibility as people are kind of starting to go in, starting to not, their schedules are going to vary quite a bit, and we'll have to continue to evaluate and adjust based on what is happening with our commuters into the city. This may start to be more of the model than necessarily commuter permits, but something that the parking ad hoc and the township are keeping an eye on.
Great, awesome. A plug for the resident shopper parking permit.
Yes, we've gotten 25 of them so far, which is a great start to something that we just started in April. We have resident shopper parking permits available. They can be picked up and or you can apply for them online, as well as in terms of downloading the registration and providing getting the necessary paperwork together. Can be submitted to the tax collector's office, and then you can use that shopper parking permit to park downtown, B3, Upper Millburn Avenue, Chatham Road, wherever there's paid parking on the street or parking lots for the time limits that apply. and you don't have to worry about feeding the pay stations, putting in your license plate number, or otherwise having coins in your pocket.
And how much are they?
They're $52 prorated right now. No, I'm sorry, $40
$40
prorated.
$60 annually.
Right.
60. That's a pretty good deal.
It's a great deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I didn't- And then, do you want to give just an update on the Upton with the numbers of school children?
Well, we did have I had a brief conversation with the Upton regarding how their leasing is going, and I want to be careful because I'm not going to have exact figures. However, the Upton has provided information that is showing that their current leasing of the building is trending towards an older demographic, 55 and older, and not producing as many school children as I think that a lot of people were predicting. And right now they have about half of the places leased, and they have about 15 school-age children in that building.
Great. So,
And we'll have we'll have solid numbers from them. They're putting together a report for us that we will post on the township's website so that everybody is aware.
awesome. And I just want to remind everyone that we are working towards coming back to normal and having in-person meetings and live stream only, so we would no longer have the Zoom option probably around August. So I want to keep saying so people can plan for that and know that. Mr. Molman, any reports tonight? Nope. Okay. Great. So we have a few presentations tonight. We're going to start with the Millburn Municipal Alliance update, and we have Ms. Heather Genqueen today to report to us. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
It's been a wild year for MMAC, and I felt like, we weren't as present as we had been, but as I sat down and kind of created our year in review for your presentation, I'm actually really surprised at how much we were able to accomplish this past year, despite all the challenges and schools being hybrid and virtual. So I just want to say a thank you to all the support we've gotten from the township and from our board of volunteers that have worked this year, because I'm very happy with how we've been able to pivot. We started the year out with some parent education. We've continued our Empower Hour series with our board member, Nancy Kislin, who's a licensed clinical social worker. She's been a longtime board member. I think this is the 20th year of doing Empower Hours. And we had a 3-part series kind of addressing different challenges that families were facing during COVID. And as I'm sure you've noticed too, virtual presentations, we get a lot more participation than we've had in the past. So we've reached a larger audience for some of these programs, which is a great surprise. We were able to fund the peer leaders in both the high school and the middle school. A lot of the funding went to pay faculty advisor stipends, so they've given so many hours to the kids, recreating programs, finding ways for them to continue all the good work that the peer leaders do and the important lessons that they're learning through new avenues. So that's been a wonderful way to support them. Then in October, we had Week of Respect, and in the middle school, and MMAC funded Scott Chesney, who is a disability rights advocate and does wonderful programs. The 6th graders see him every year, and he encourages them to build resilience, to find their passions. It's a very empowering program. 7th grade had a program with Detective Barbosa, the juvenile detective in town, kind of talking about internet safety, digital citizenship, upstanding, how they can be upstanders in their communities. So it's a wonderful program. And then the 8th graders, we brought in Dr. Fowlin. We try to bring him in every year because he's a wonderful program he talks about. the importance of acceptance of people of all kinds, whether gender, race, religion, and a lot of powerful messages that he provides. Then in the elementary school, we were able to do Red Ribbon Week. It looked a little bit different. We weren't able to work with our seniors, senior citizens to make the ribbons, but we had a troop of volunteers, made them at home, and we decorated all the schools. We had an awesome art contest, and we had so many submissions. They're still up on our website if you ever want to take a look at some of these great ones. And we awarded prizes to kids in each of the elementary schools and the middle school. Family Meal Week was in April in the elementary school, and kind of twist that this whole year has been Family Meal Week. So we kind of built on that and talked about the importance of building those connections with your kids at a young age. The high school peer leaders are also doing a lot of work with cross-age teaching. They've created videos that have gone into the 4th grade. So they've been able to make those connections with the kids virtually. They're planting red flowers to remind their peers about staying substance abuse free. And we're just this week, MAC purchased the licensing for a documentary called Haze. We've shown it in past years, but we're bringing it back this year with some of the hazing tragedies that have occurred nationwide. We felt, especially this year, kids will be going back to school, and it's kind of like that freedom, and we just want them to be aware of the dangers that can occur with hazing on college campuses. 5th grade, they've are still doing the DARE program. We have our BMX celebration assembly in June, which will be outside, and the kids will be together. It's going to be great. And we've had other parent education programs on marijuana and stress and anxiety. And we're continuing to work and support programs with some of our community partners, including Partnership for Drug-Free New Jersey. We participated in Knockout Opioid Abuse Day, Take Back Day with the Millburn Police. Our Essex County ADAPT program, we've been very active with them. And the Consortium of Student Assistance Coordinators with their, I think it's every other month they do a parent wellness series. So while we're not an advocacy organization, we're here to provide community education, support. We just want to continue to thank you for everything you do to make sure that Millburn is a safe and healthy community for all of our families. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Okay, on to our next presentation. We have Mr. Jeffrey Pole here to talk about the former Millburn Exxon service station remediation update.
I have a presentation, some slideshow.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Powley from TRC Environmental Corporation. I'm a senior project director and a licensed site remediation professional and a professional geologist. And I took over managing the remediation of the former Millburn Exxon service station a couple years ago. And with that, I began to review the past work and to try to find a pathway to, complete the remediation in compliance with the regulations. And we presented to the town, I think it was back in February 2020, a plan to finish up the delineation of the soil contamination and track the injection program that we did in 2016 to see if the groundwater levels were decreasing or stable. And we were hoping that we would see a decreasing trend. We also had to vertically delineate the groundwater plume, and we were hoping that we'd be able to do that too without having to go back another day and finish the work. And we were successful there. We were able to vertically delineate the groundwater. We returned to some older soil samples and we're able to resample those locations, and we found that the levels had dropped below, for the most part, below the standards. I'll get into some of the details now. Can you go to the next slide? So I'll give you a brief history of the site. the regulatory status of the soils and the status of the groundwater investigation and remediation. Next slide. There's some pictures of the site. It's at the corner of Morris and Essex. It's a big parking lot there. The site is pretty old. Millburn purchased it in 1930, and subsequently it was leased out to a couple different gasoline retailers, the last one being Exxon. In 1987, there was a spill from the tanks that was detected, and in 1989, the tanks were removed, and the use of the site was converted into the parking lot that you have now. The investigation started in the late 80s and continued on for several years off and on until we took some more aggressive steps in 2016, which was the injection of the chemicals into the subsurface to treat the groundwater in the soil. And in 2020, as I said earlier, we did some additional work to tidy up the delineation. The reason we went back and did that is because the DEP has been telling us over the last couple of years that they want to see what they call delineation in 360 degrees around the contamination. A lot of gas station work, people just kind of went out horizontally to delineate and they didn't go vertical. And if you go to the DEP to try to close out the case and you didn't do vertical delineation, they would pretty much reject your request to close it. So that's the reason we went back and did some of the work. Next slide. So with the soils, as I said, we completed the delineation, except we did have one location where the result was still above the standard. So we had to step out and delineate that towards Essex Street a little bit, and we were successful there. We also confirmed, as I said earlier, that the levels of VOCs in the soils dropped. So for the most part now, they're below the standards, except one location. Next steps with the soil are going to address that contamination from the gasoline, but also there's historic fill material. So I think at one time the site, the river probably, kind of flowed through that area and it wasn't developed, and in order to make it usable, it was filled in with soil. And back when they used to do that, sometimes that soil was contaminated from wherever it came from. And in this case, we determined that was the case. So there's what they call historic fill material that we have to address with the deed notice. And also, once we establish a deed notice, we'll be submitting a remedial action report on the soil and applying for a permit for the historic fill. I'm hoping that what I can do with the VOC one hit that's left is do what they call compliance averaging, where I could take the cleaner samples and that sample, average them together, and it should drop below the standard. So we're going to try to do that so we don't have to include that in the deed notice. The groundwater. So the injections for the most part worked. What we noticed was that there was a decrease in the size of the plume and a decrease in the mass. And what we're looking at is we've also noticed decreases in the concentrations in the wells, especially in the wells that are on the outer side of the site. Those have dropped below the standards, or they're clean now. And what we're hoping to do is apply for a permit with the DEP and get them to approve monitored natural attenuation for the site. And then we'll, if they approve that, I'll be able to issue what they call a response action outcome letter to Millburn and close out the case. But the case actually won't really be closed. We'll have to, because there'll still be some lingering contamination over time, we'll have to monitor that probably like once a year, once every 2 years. I'll probably try to go for once every 2 years and see if they'll approve that to save some money. We'll see how it goes. Next slide. So this is just a graphic representation of the benzene part of the gasoline plume under the site, and this was in the earlier days, in the early 2000s. So what you see is the yellow is the lower concentrations, generally below 100 parts per billion. And then the orange area is the concentrations between 1,000 parts per billion and 100. And then the red ellipse is by the source. And all the concentrations of the groundwater contamination inside that red area is above 1,000. Next slide. So in January 2016, right before the injections were done, the plume had already shrunk somewhat just by natural attenuation. Next slide. Then we injected the amendments into the groundwater, and you can see that the red dot's gone. The concentrations have dropped below 1,000. The plume has shrunk. And we think that this visual line of evidence is going to be really key when I apply for the permit for the town with the DEP to get them to approve that approach that I mentioned. So that's all I have for today. If anybody has any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Hi, thank you for coming tonight.
You're
This
welcome.
is being paid for by Exxon, correct? This is being paid for by the
By
township?
the township.
Ah,
How long would this project take now?
How long will it take? The project should take, I would say, another year for us to get everything, all the paperwork. Right now, it's like a paperwork exercise. We have to file a deed notice and file some other papers and gather that all that stuff together and submit it. Then we'll have to wait for the DEP to review the permit application, which right now with COVID and some of the other things that have been going on at the department, it's taking more than 6 months to get a peep from them. So it could take like 6 months to a year once I apply for the permit. So what we'll probably do during that time frame is just kind of sit and wait for them to respond. And when they do, hopefully they'll approve it. And then the duration of the permit's going to depend on some calculations that we have to make based on the trend of the concentrations in the wells over time. But I can't ballparking it, and don't hold me to this number, but I'm going to guess it's going to be like a 10 to 15 year program of monitoring, like initially maybe once every 2 years, and then cutting back on that monitoring over time to maybe once every 5 years.
Every time when you come and monitor that, what is the cost we are looking at?
I can't really estimate that right now, but with a similar site, so for the soil, when you do biennial certifications for the soil permit, which is just going to be the cap for the historic fill, which is, okay, I'm sorry. So the cap for the historic fill would need to be inspected once a year, and then a biennial certification would need to be filled out once every 2 years. That probably would cost about $2,000 to $4,000 every 2 years for that. And then for the groundwater, it's more expensive because when you're sampling, there's going to probably be 5 or 6 wells that we sample, and then you have to sort of break down that data that you get back from the laboratory, make some maps, fill out some forms, do another biennial certification, put that package together and send that into the DEP also once every 2 years. So it's probably going to be, I don't know, maybe 50 to 50,000 to 100,000 over a 15-year period. But I have to wait and see what the DEP is going to do when I apply before I can give you like more specific numbers. So I've been holding off on providing that.
So all
To the
this
town.
started from when we had the parking lot at 89, so almost over 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
thank you.
if I might have asked you this over the past few years, why is Exxon not responsible for this?
Because the township owned the property.
Even though it was leased to a gas station and it was their spill? That is so sad.
It's in New Jersey, it's under the New Jersey Spill Act requires owners, when they discover the contamination, to clean it up. And if you wanted to try, you could sue Exxon, but I think that might have already been attempted. I'm not familiar with the older history of the case.
I think you're nodding
I'm kinda
yes.
new to it, but
And we actually have Joanne Voss, who may be able to weigh in on this.
Right.
On the Zoom. But before we bring Joanne maybe on to answer that question, Mr. Powley, I think part of the your being here too is that there is a change order on the consent agenda.
That's correct.
So if you might maybe just explain that a bit.
Sure.
Too,
So last year we proposed a budget of $107,000, and so far we've spent to date $83,000 of that budget. And so at that point, we decided to take another look at the work we've accomplished and what we have left to finish. And some of the work that we did already cost a little bit extra more than we expected. For example, the installation, the vertical delineation of the groundwater and the installation of the permanent well for that, and also the soil delineation. We had to step out from one of the locations towards Essex Street to get the full delineation. And based off that, we spent some of the money from some of the other tasks to cover that cost to keep us from at least going over budget on some of the different phases in the project. In order to complete some of the paperwork that we have to submit, we're asking the town to approve a change order of approximately $14,000 additional money, which would allow us to complete pretty much the administrative part of the project at this point, the report writing and all the documents I mentioned that have to go in with the applications.
Jesse, do you have Joanne on there? I can't see up there, but
Not yet.
okay.
We're still, the presentation's still on.
You can take the presentation down unless you want to see something else.
I see her now. Joanne, do you mind speaking to the history of this just briefly about and what makes the township responsible?
Yeah, I would be happy to do that. So the town owned this property since 1929, 1930. It had been leased to various gas station operators over the years. In 1975, it was being operated by Exxon. As Jeff told you before, there was various discharges in the tanks that were being used in the operation. There were 18 underground storage tanks that were removed. In 1992, the township did, as I understand it, institute litigation against the responsible parties, those being Exxon, carriers for various gas station operators. They all banded together, all the defendants in that litigation, and they chipped in $215,000, gave that money to the township in 1992. And in exchange for that payment, the township released those responsible parties from any liability, and the township assumed the responsibility to conduct the cleanup. And to be fair, the township is considered under the law, as Jeff was starting to say, under the Spill Act, a responsible party because it is an owner. And also in this case, because they were leasing to the discharger and there was a pecuniary benefit to the township during those leaseholds. So the town is a responsible party under the law. And that's why the town has picked up the remediation and is continuing to do the remediation in accordance with the remediation timeframes that are implemented under the administrative rules for the remediation of contaminated sites.
I'm sorry, she is,
Sorry, Joanne is from Kit's firm. She's an attorney who specializes in environmental law.
thank you. Now, she is the attorney from our side. This gentleman is from the project side who's working on this project. Is someone from our payroll, from township payroll, the project lead on this, who understands this whole project?
Your township engineer.
Okay, so maybe a report from her, what we just heard, and the ETA, and so she understands the project. I feel comfortable that I'm signing on the right amount. Both of them, I respect both of them, but someone from our side needs to be really on top of this. Another 15 years this project is going to go with. Maybe there's some shortcut where if we build something there from our township, will stop this project. I don't know what the answer is, and there may not be any answer, but some kind of report from our technical lead on this would be helpful.
Martha Callahan has certainly been following this for the many years that this has been going on, during my involvement at least, anyway, since 2012. And I know that Martha has a good handle on the facts and what's going on. She looks at the maps, the sampling maps, and so on and so forth. Jeff, though, is the licensed site remediation professional who is in charge of the site. He has a special license that's been granted to him by the state, which essentially allows him to stand in the shoes of the DEP. When the Site Remediation Reform Act was adopted years ago, it basically privatized the oversight of remediation. And so Jeff is standing in that position now. Jeff has been in this role for several years, but before him it was Dr. Zaman. Some of you may remember Dr. Zaman. He was on it for years prior to Jeff, same firm, TRC. So there has been a level of continuity, but I can appreciate what you're saying, Committeeman Vinayak, and I can talk to Martha about that.
Thank you.
If I may say, I am trying, as the LSRP for the project, I am trying to balance I'm trying to come up with the most cost-effective approach based on the conditions at the site as they are right now.
And I'm not saying otherwise.
Yeah,
I'm
and
truly
there's-
not saying anything otherwise. I just feel
Yeah.
that this project, which was started 30 years ago, will take another
Right.
15 years. If we cannot have this project under control ourselves here, I would rather like to get a report on this project every interval, whether that's quarterly, 6 months, a yearly.
I'd be happy to provide you with, if you wanted quarterly update reports, I could do that.
I
can meet
would
with
rather
Martha.
have it from our people on our
Okay.
payroll instead of paying
understand.
outside
Yeah.
firm.
But Committeeman Vinayak, I mean, the issue here is that the township is hiring and has to hire the professional LSRP from, to oversee this project, and his reports are the ones, so we'd be doing the work of the LSRP in addition to the LSRP. So I'm just, in terms of efficiency and things like that, we can have Martha review his reports and township engineer review his reports for accuracy and things like that. But I wouldn't suggest that our staff then do the reports that he's already doing.
Well, that's doable. That's fine with me.
Okay.
So if she can review it and write it in plain, simple English to us, what that means, that'll be helpful.
We'll get that process in place.
Thank you.
I just want to say, if anyone has a neighbor or if they have had to remove an oil tank from their front yard, it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars and years to get clearance. It's a bureaucratic nightmare, and it's just very expensive. And
Yeah.
in this situation, it is just what it is.
Right. So
Yeah.
I agree and I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. The thing is, we are spending money left, right, center on everything, and this may not be the stream that is money going out. I just want to get a handle on what all we are spending on, and so we are aware of how much money to keep aside for this project, just to get a handle on things. That's all.
I have one question. This is required by the DEP, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we don't have a choice here, do we?
No, and
No.
there's a regulatory timeframe that passed already, but they extended it 1 year because of COVID.
Okay.
So I have till May 6, 2022 to submit all the paperwork to the DEP, but because I'm applying for permits,
Yeah.
I actually have to try to do that at least 6 months ahead of that date. So my goal is to try to get everything done by, let's say November, before Thanksgiving, and get it into the DEP for review. And in order to, if we were to try to speed things up to make this go away quicker, it's possible to do that, but it would cost significantly more money all at once. And basically, we would have to go back and do more of those injections. And based on our evaluation of what happened from the 2 injections that we did do, it's sufficient enough to get the site to a point where we can close it out and just monitor periodically. There's no really based on the location of the contamination in the water, which it's about, let's say, about 6 to 12 feet below the ground. It's not really harming anyone. It's under a parking lot. It's like one of the perfect places for this to be, actually. And it hasn't, it's shrinking. The plume is shrinking. It's not leaving the property, and where it can affect, another property owner's building or something like that. So it's pretty much under control. And what we've come up with is what we think is the best, even though it might take a long time. I really think that's going to be, in the long run, the most cost-effective approach for the town, because you're not going to be forking out a lot of money like all at once. It's going to be a little bit here and there over a couple of years. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last presentation tonight is on community energy aggregation from Concord Energy Services. And Mr. McDonald, do you want to?
Yeah, so we're pleased to have Vicki Malloy from Concord Energy Services here to explain to the Township Committee community energy aggregation. Although she represents Hunterdon community aggregation, this is going to be a brief presentation more about how community energy aggregation works and what it looks like. So happy to have Vicki here.
And then we will be voting on the first to.
We will be looking to finalize the ordinance to permit the township to enter into community energy aggregation, and then a resolution following that to become part of the group, the Hunterdon group.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, committee. How are you today?
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for having me. My name is Vicki Malloy. I'm Vice President of Energy Services for Concord Energy Services, located in Voorhees, New Jersey. And I'm going to be kind of going over today the presentation for community energy aggregation for the Township of Millburn. So this kind of gives you a little bit of background of energy deregulation. Prior to 1999, all of the utilities produced their own power. They owned their own generation plants, and they delivered the power to their residents and their businesses, all of their constituents. In 1999, energy deregulation actually happened in New Jersey, where the power plants now became unbundled from the power supply. Everything went deregulated, so it wasn't regulated by the Board of Public Utilities. All the utilities purchased all of their power from energy suppliers, which was a middleman, and then sent it to their constituents, residents, business community. Similar to Bell Atlantic, when Verizon and AT&T came in play, and you could buy your long distance for a cheaper price. So energy deregulation was born along with consumer choice legislation. It gives you the option to choose your supplier on your electric bill. Next slide. Every year, New Jersey holds a statewide basic generation service auction. And this auction actually picks the suppliers that provide electricity into our grid in New Jersey. The BGS auction winners in 2021 are listed here. So these are all of the actual suppliers that are sending power into the grid in New Jersey for all of the consumers. Next slide. So what is aggregation? So community energy aggregation actually is a process that works kind of parallel to the state's process. Where the state holds, an auction every February, the actual, our aggregation can hold an auction at any time during the year. The state sets the utility default rate. That's the price that everybody pays for their energy supply rate. And the new rates always take effect in June of every year. And there's a formula that they use with regards to the auctions. It's a combination of 33% over the last 3 years, and they come up with an average price, which sets the consumer default rate. And the utilities default rate is what community energy aggregation, that's what we look to beat every year, or with our programs as they run. New Jersey Administrative Code Title 14 was enacted in 2012, which basically defined community energy aggregation. And all the rules and regulations are overseen by the Board of Public Utilities and Ratepayers Advocate. So community energy aggregation replaces the default rate with a new price based on the community's local usage. It's a bulk purchase of electricity from a third-party supplier. We go out to bid, we have an RFP, we have an agreement that suppliers sign. So the bids are in accordance with New Jersey procurement law. Communities are able to have the option to provide rate reductions, on their energy costs. Although we can't guarantee month-to-month savings, our programs that we've been running since 2014 have produced over $8 million in actual savings. And we track actual savings, not just at the time of bid projected savings. And this program actually provides a lot of consumer protections not normally available for individuals who would go out on their own to a third-party supplier and get their own contract. Next slide. So the process, it's pretty simple. The ordinance process, which I believe the second reading is tonight, and the ordinance is adopted. There's a couple of resolutions that we have to pass in order to join a cooperative or to sign documents. And then there's, our government energy aggregation agreement. There's a utility agreement. There's a couple of agreements that need to get executed too as well. We prepare and submit all the bid documents to the Board of Public Utilities and Division of Rate Counsel, which I previously advised and also to BPU and Division of Rate Counsel submits comments back on the documents that we send them. And all the comments are sent back to you. We review them. A lot of them are standard comments, and we provide a response that goes back to them with a copy to you as well, so that you're fully informed during the whole process with regards to, when we're going out for formal bid. The energy auction is held. We select the winning bidder if the bid is lower than the utility default rate at the time of the bid. And then, the program is started, and we begin the outreach to the residents about the program. We actually work with the township very closely. We develop customized outreach programs based on your unique needs. You may have a large senior community. You may have large communities of apartment complexes, or communities that need maybe a little bit of extra hand-holding and touch. So we'll work with you to develop, a customized outreach program that's specific to your township. We can include mailings. We can include public outreach meetings. We have a video that goes on your website. We have a customized web page that we also have. We can actually put a lot of information on your web page. And then, of course, the auction process is repeated at the conclusion of the contract. Next slide. So these are some of the details concerning the aggregation. When a supplier is awarded, there's an initial 30-day window for residents to decide if they would like to opt out of the program. Anyone choosing not to opt out of the program will be enrolled in the program. So this means that all the eligible residents are automatically included in the program unless they opt out of the program. And the eligible residents include residents who do not have a current third-party supplier that they've chosen. And we currently do not include solar clients because we don't want to mess with their net metering credits. They always have the option to join in, but they're not initially included in the program. We give the residents many options on the way to opt out of the program. We have a postcard that's included with the information kit that goes to them that has a barcode that's specific to them. We give them the option to permanently opt out of the program as well. And this option basically ensures that if the Township of Millburn moves forward with any other programs, after the initial one, that they will not be included. Of course, residents always have the option to opt in, but they won't be included in any subsequent rounds of auction pricing moving forward. We have an 800 number. We have a call center in Butler. That's all they do is take the opt-outs. They call the call center. The call center gets their information and opts them out of the program. And we also have a customized website where residents can go online and opt out as well. Next slide. So with regards to the community energy aggregation, all the current services that are provided by the utility still remain the same. Delivery of the electricity, the meter readings, the billing, the payment processing, all emergency services, everything that JCP&L provides today, they will still provide. The only thing that they're not going to provide is the electricity that comes from the BGS auction from the state. They're going to replace that with the awarded supplier's electricity. Residents are still going to continue to call their utility for service-related questions or outages. Residents will still receive one bill every month from the utility. They will have the new suppliers, the program suppliers' charges on that bill. Budget billing is offered, equal payment plan budget billing is offered in the program. So any residents who actually want to continue in a budget billing, if they have it, or if they want to get involved in a budget billing, it is offered. There's no fees to be a part of the program. There's no cancellation fees. And no one from the program, and this is something that we really try to stress, no one from the program will be calling or knocking on any resident's door regarding this program. We're not going to be asking them for personal information. Everything is done via mail, and all of the information that comes to the residents comes from the township only. So it'll be on the website or it'll be via mail. Next slide. So one of the programs that, we're actually involved in now is renewable pricing options, which I think Millburn is very interested in. It enables the municipality to influence the source of electricity. Of course, the environmental benefits are great. Cost savings. This is the one drawback with Title 14. The cost savings of the utility price to compare is not mandated. However, we have a program that is actually providing a lot of savings to residents that have 100% renewable energy option, and I'll go over that in another slide. And then, of course, you have the potential to earn points with Sustainable Jersey through the RGEA program. One of the things that we do recommend for municipalities that consider a renewable pricing option, because it does have a higher pricing point than the normal price to compare with the utility. It could have a higher pricing point than the normal price to compare with the utility, or just having, apples to apples comparison. Is we really like to have, especially at the outreach meetings, someone from the committee, someone from the township involved, just to show support for the program when we are doing the outreach to the residents. Next slide. And I think you can, this is a sample JCP&L bill. It's one of their old, they just actually changed their design a little bit. But JCP&L, the two yellow arrows, they actually put on their bill every month, this is what you would have paid if you were with the utility. And the only thing that we are going to be replacing is the basic generation service line. So that cost only. They're still going to get the customer charge from JCP&L. They're still going to get the delivery charges from JCP&L. The only thing that we're replacing in the program is the basic generation service charge And I think there's another part to this slide. Maybe. Okay, next slide. So some of the benefits with regards to community energy aggregation. So there's a lot of consumer protections that are available. The township is basically offering residents an option. Although everybody is automatically included, you know, it is another option that the township is offering to a resident. So you have the option to stay with the utility, you have the option to go to a third party of your own, or you have the option with the township. Residents can get in and out of the program as much as they want, whenever they want, and there's no fees or penalties associated with, you know, coming in and out. So if they see a better rate somewhere else, they can definitely opt out and go for that rate. Or if they just, you know, when they're in a current program and the township's rate is better, they can always, you know, get into the township's program. There's no predatory contracting, there's no fees of any kind, and we do not do variable rates within the program. So all the rates are fixed. Something that happened, and we got a lot of questions from some of the towns with regards to Texas. You know, Texas got hurt recently because of the power outages. A lot of residents and businesses are on variable rate programs, which means that their rate changed every month and that they floated with a market type price. Our program protects residents against that variable rate. So the rate is fixed and the rate is constant. So there's no types of issues, you know, with the power outage or anything like that that would happen to the residents. The rate would remain fixed throughout the contract. So we have the reduced rates and budget stability that's offered through the program. Like I said earlier, there's flexible participation. The residents will continue to receive one bill from JCP&L. Budget billings offered. All outreach is done by our team. So I have a team of men and women that work with me, and all of the outreach is done by us. We handhold our programs. We also have a call center that we have internally. That's a round robin that even I get on the phone and answer questions for residents, you know, as they come in, as the programs are starting. So, you know, we do offer that option too, where we kind of take control for the program just to make sure that, you know, all questions are answered and that it's a success for the township. We also have a reporting tool for the municipalities such as yourself, and we also have an option for the residents, you know, where you can track and view the savings throughout the program, and we track actual savings. We don't track the projected savings at the time of bid. Some of our competitors will, you know, go out and they look at the projected savings at the time of bid if everybody was involved in the program. You know, as we know, there's attrition and people fall off. The opt-out percentage is somewhere around 20%. That's kind of the average. So we actually look at through the program and the savings, the actual savings, we track it on a monthly basis. And we have those reports available for you. We feel transparency is very important with these programs, especially when you're, you know, looking at your community and you want to offer them a program that you feel is a good choice for them. Residents can opt in and out of the program options. We even have online where they can, you know, opt into different programs. So the one program that we currently have right now, it's the default base program where we're basically competing with JCP&L and the renewable energy that's in that rate. And then there's an option for 100% renewable. And I'll go into that on this slide. But we have the option right online where residents can opt, you know, up, in, out, you know, right online for them. Next slide. Why choose our team? We have between CUC and Concord, you know, CUC has been in business since 1975. Concord's been in business since 1989. We have energy professionals, utility background. We've sold third-party electricity. We've, been involved with the sale of natural gas. So we have a very strong energy background in all facets. All education and outreach efforts, mailings, response tracking, we do it internally. We kind of micromanage it, but we felt that, with lessons learned, we felt that that was the best way to kind of handle these programs. We're currently running multiple successful GEA programs in New Jersey, in JCP&L service territory. We have an in-house energy auction platform that was originally approved by DCA, and we've used it for the e-procurement program until just recently when, that got opened up to everybody. We custom built a proprietary aggregation tracking software. So we track all of the documents, we track everything internally. So everything is available to the township at any time. If you can't find something, we can definitely give it to you. And we're a local New Jersey team committed to succeed. Next slide. I kind of went over these a little bit. We currently have 63 towns under contract. These are some of the recent hires. Gloucester County is looking to do a county-sponsored GEA cooperative program. They hired us. We were recently hired by Sustainable Monmouth Cooperative to run an 8-town RGEA cooperative program with 8 towns in Monmouth County. And we are actually working with the County of Bergen. Bergen is looking to implement a community energy aggregation program. So we are actually doing outreach to towns right now and surveys to see if towns are interested in potentially participating in a county-sponsored aggregation in Bergen County. And we currently have the largest GEA cooperative in the state. Actually, it's now 17 towns. I should have updated that. Next slide. So some of our experience, the Morris Area Energy Cooperative, we actually started that program back in 2015. And getting the towns together, the first bid actually started in 2016. We recently added Jefferson Township, and Denville just recently joined back in April. We just saved that program over $2.2 million since its inception, when the program started running back in 2016. Sussex Warren Area Cooperative, that includes 15 towns. Next slide. The Hunterdon Area Energy Cooperative, which was established in 2018, that currently has 17 towns. This is the cooperative that I think Millburn is looking to potentially join. We just started a new program with them, so we're on the second round of the program with them. And this was a pilot program that we started with an enhanced renewable energy option, 100% enhanced renewable energy option. So as you can see, our program rate for our residents right now, just for the default, and that's for anybody who, is automatically included, who doesn't opt into the higher renewable or who doesn't opt out, is 0867. And the 100% renewable rate is 0878. Next slide. We also have the Monmouth Area Energy Cooperative. We have 5 towns in that. And then, of course, I talked about the Gloucester County residential aggregation earlier, too, as well. Next slide. Bergen County, and then Sustainable Monmouth. So I've already talked about all of that. I think the next slide is just going to be open for questions. Yes. Thank you very much for letting me present tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Ms. Malloy today?
Well, I'll just give my 2 cents. I was a part of this a few years ago, and Mr. Molman worked intimately with that group, and unfortunately, we couldn't take part because we were JCP&L and PSE&G combo. So I've been waiting and hoping to see this again. So I'm just really, really excited, Vicki, and thank you so much for that wonderful presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. We're excited to get you guys involved as well. I mean, there is going to be a little bit of a process, and we might not be able to get into this round, but one of the things that we are looking at, and I've had, many conversations with, Mr. McDonald, that, we're going to be looking to get you guys set up so that way you are involved in the next phase.
Last time there was a question asked if we can get the energy not only from solar, but also from nuclear. Is that even an option for us through you?
So, New Jersey, actually, nuclear is already a big part of the mix. New Jersey is actually subsidizing all of the nuclear plants that provide electricity to our area. A lot of them are owned by PSE&G's deregulated subsidiary. So we have a very large percentage of nuclear already in the electricity mix. Solar is also a part of the mix as part of renewable portfolio standards, which is a requirement. Governor Christie put that in place right before he had stepped down. Governor Murphy actually enhanced it with the Clean Energy Act in 2019. So, which requires that New Jersey move, with renewable energy, with some pretty, lofty goals. I think by 2030, we're looking at 50% of renewable energy in the mix, which includes class 1 renewable. Unfortunately, that doesn't include nuclear, but it does include solar and wind and hydro.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, please. You said that your rates are fixed for the year. Is that correct? Did I hear you say that correctly?
Yes, they're flat rates. I mean, pending any, let's just say that if the tax rate went up, right? If it's going to affect the utility price to compare, then it would affect the program rate. But only if it affects the, utility program rate, or if there's, a change in law that affects New Jersey. But yes, the prices are fixed. They're not variable. They do not change month to month.
And that's for every one of the utilities, is that correct? That you're competing with? That's for the same for, like JCP&L doesn't change their rates mid-year.
So JCP&L changes their rates on a quarterly basis. They have a moving, what's called a BGS reconciliation rate, which changes quarterly. So, that charge does fluctuate.
Can you tell me, how does this benefit our township?
Well, right now, and just based on the current program that we're running with the Hunterdon Area Energy Cooperative, the price to compare with JCP&L is over 10 cents. And the price that we have right now is almost a penny and a half cheaper. So for an average user that's using about 600 kilowatt hours, and I don't know what the usages are for the township of Millburn, but I can tell you that the average in the Hunterdon area is about 800 to 1,000, depending on the town. Some towns have bigger homes. So for a penny and a half, that's somewhere between I would say 6.5 cents to probably $6 to $15 in savings monthly right now. Which, if you add it up over the year, I mean, it adds up. I think every little bit helps the residents.
Does the township get any money back from you for using your company?
Absolutely not. Per Title 14, the townships are not allowed to make any money on this program. This is a service that the township would just pass along to their residents to try to help them.
Okay. Do we ever get money back from the utilities from the state government? No?
I'm not sure what the,
Like, when you pay extra taxes in your utility bills, right? There's extra taxes that you have to pay. Does that ever get kicked back to the town? Do we ever benefit from that?
not to my knowledge.
I don't think so.
Why did 20% opt out? That seems like an awfully high number.
Well, I'm looking at 20%. All return mail has to be automatically opted out. So we've had some problems with the post office, since COVID happened back in March of 2020. We've noticed that the post office is not as reliable with the mail. So the program mandates that if you get return mail, you have to opt them out. So that opt-out has been kind of high. On average, it's about 11% right now without the return mail.
My last question.
We just have to include that in the totals.
I understand. Do you know who the State House uses, who our government uses, our own government? Like,
For-
Trenton and all the state, do they use your company?
They do. We are the state contractor for the NJBPU and the energy aggregation for all the state facilities, state colleges. Yeah, so we work with the Board of Public Utilities to help them to reduce their costs for electricity and natural gas.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I think also we should mention that the municipalities do this, and there's a substantial savings. So it's really about savings and getting a better quality of electricity. So it's something. How long has Millburn been doing this, Alex, in a cooperative?
We've been aggregating our energy for probably the last 6 to 7 years.
Right, and there's a substantial savings.
There is a substantial savings to us in that, because we've also been doing it on our natural gas side as well.
Right.
And who do we aggregate from? Who do we get?
We use a company called Emex to auction the township's energy, and then it's bid out. So whoever buys it, which could be Direct Energy or Constellation or whomever, they set the price, give us the ability to go out fluidly when the market is ripe for the municipality to do so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want, the other point to that on the township side and also the residential side is that this gives an opportunity for us to participate in the green energy and purchase green energy. So the township is currently, I think we've upped our percentage in the amount of green energy that we purchase as well through that bid process.
And that's higher cost, the green energy.
It can be. I don't know that it necessarily, it can be. But also, you're saying, you can fluctuate that much, like Vicky said. From a residential standpoint, you can have 100% if that's your belief, or but from the township, we've kept it at 25% for that reason as well too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Malloy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to consent agenda resolutions. And we're not doing second reading on that tonight. We're doing
Correct.
it on
That's June 1st.
Right, so just wanted to clarify that. The committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any of the items listed on the consent agenda?
Mayor, I have one question on consent 21143. Will that include, if this grant comes through, wait, make sure it's the right one. Yeah. Would these lighting poles be Wi-Fi enabled?
I don't think there was any specification to them being Wi-Fi enabled, but poles, well, and again, we haven't bid it yet. So you can make them Wi-Fi enabled. Plus, you can also have them, much like the poles we have here, where they have electric capability at the top of the pole to be able to plug in routers and be able to provide Wi-Fi through it.
So that would be something that could be done.
Yeah, I think what you want to do is make sure that whatever you're installing is versatile.
Right.
It has the ability to be used in several different ways and not just a light pole.
Okay, yeah, that's really important. Thank you.
Any other questions on any of the consent agenda items from the committee?
Nope.
Okay. We are going to open it up for public comment on the consent agenda items only. I'm going to ask that everyone adhere to the 3-minute time limit. So be giving 2 minutes and 30 seconds and then another 30 seconds to wrap it up. And please state your name and your address, and please state which resolution you are speaking to.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? So I'm going to first apologize as I didn't write the.
We can't
We
hear
can't
you.
hear you.
I don't know.
Mic is on. It's just
Can you
that-
guys hear me now?
Nope.
Thank you. How about now?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Good evening, Onyo Walabi, 46 Maple Street in Millburn. I said I would like to apologize first because I didn't jot down the numbers of the consent agenda. So I just reviewed it and I'll just state my thoughts. So what I would like to touch on is a couple of things on the related, the consent agenda first. The reading regarding the 2021 estimated tax bills, you know, as a school board member, I know that our school budget has been certified with the county clerk, with the county and the local tax office. If possible, can you explain how, you know, how you came to the number to tax the residents? I don't know if any one of you can answer that. You know, did the increase come from the municipal, the county, library? You know, because I just noticed that, you know, we're higher by about $3 million.
Could you say that again? We're what?
I said we are, the amount went up by about $3 million, if I'm correct. Can any one of you?
Can you just, there's an agenda over there if you want to speak to a specific resolution.
So I'm talking about the bill list.
21,142.
Well, hold on.
Yeah, the estimated tax bills.
Okay, so, yep.
So I don't know if any one of you
So
have an answer.
we during public comment, you ask your questions and
Okay.
then we respond at the end of
Sure,
public
let me
comment.
go to my
Thank you.
second comment. So my second question is, did we break the budget for the snow removal? Because I noticed that that payment is about $40,000 more. I will appreciate clarification on that. My third question is regarding the payment to a law firm paid to redact their time summaries. What is the status and what was the preliminary investigation about? I would like to know because I'm finding out that the public has no idea about this. And the other payment that I have in question is, and if you can give a clear answer to this, that would be great, is regarding the Buzak law firm. Why did we let the same law firm, who was the planning board attorney, while they are representing the town in the regulatory judgment for affordable housing case? Why are we letting them do that? I would like to know if you all think that this is a conflict of interest or not. And I think that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. I just want to also elaborate on the bill list, that's 21,138. Since September, I've been asking for, like every quarter, to have a list of our operating revenues and operating reports so we can compare, let's say, for the snow removal, because you see that there's a large bill for salt. And when you look at the salt bill, part of it goes to calendar year 2020. Why is that now being paid and it shouldn't have been part of last year's budget rather than this year's budget? I also have asked questions about the preliminary federal investigation. I think it's time for us to know when it was completed and what was the scope of it. As to the Buzak law firm, I think Mr. David Cosgrove, since January, has been asking about the conflicts issue. You might want to look at some case law that came out yesterday from the appellate division about persuasive case law, where they talk about whether the community, when you look at what happened at the planning board, whether the community was adequately represented by the Buzak law firm. Because I think, based on your matters of discussion, you're going to have a discussion about auxiliary uses, and that, I think, goes back to the rooftop decks, whether the public was told years ago what was happening. Regarding the estimated tax bill 21,142, I think we are entitled to know why, who's holding up the certification of the bills. Was it the county? It wasn't you. Was it the county? And also understanding what component went up. The estimated tax bill returns me back to October 2019, my first appearance before this board. At that time, I questioned what step Millburn is taking to compel the county to collect all long-term tax exemption revenues that was due it. I raised that issue in July and August 2020. That still goes, because we get money that would reduce our portion. I still raise the issue. What steps is this board going to do to compel the county to disclose and collect all long-term tax exemption revenues due it? Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else?
Good evening. Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. I had a couple of questions. I just wanted to start off by saying tonight, it's not the consent agenda, sorry, but it's a great piece of news. We have a resident who is an headed to the Olympics. Her name is Molly Reckford, and she lives in Glenwood, and she just qualified to go to the Olympics, and she's on her way home. So
That is amazing news.
anyway,
What sport, Jean?
she's in
Crew?
rowing.
Oh.
She's a rower.
That's amazing.
Crew.
Thank you
Yep.
for letting us know.
Anyway, the questions I have are, will we be getting the monthly, quarterly revenue budget operating reports that we can use as comparisons to look and see what's going on with the budget versus actual? Would we know, for example, with something like the SALT, how it compared to last year, and are we going to expect to have a huge hit during this year? No one can exactly predict that, but it would at least give us some comparison and know where we're headed. I guess the other thing is the Beehive spot zoning litigation. Did Millburn retain outside special redevelopment litigation counsel for that? And is that on this bill list somewhere? How much did Millburn in total pay its municipal attorney to research whether local elected officials could attend fair share housing declaratory judgment mediation sessions and case management conferences? How much did Millburn pay its municipal attorney to research whether the Buzak law firm had a per se disqualifying conflict of interest? How much did Millburn pay its municipal attorney for pre-August 11th services, creating the contested, expanded, appointed city entity and defending the disqualifying conflict of interest allegations against the mayor? And how much has Millburn paid its municipal attorney post-August 11th, defending the validity of the contested CID under state law on our mayor's participation in this matter? Let's see. Yep, I think that covers it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to go to the phone or to the Zoom.
To the Zoom.
Nancy Stone.
Oh.
Oh, you want to do the Zoom?
I thought we were going to.
That's fine.
All right, Ms. Stone, go. Sure.
I'm going to be quick, so unless you. Let them go,
Let's
let them go.
all right.
I'll wait. Let them go.
Okay.
I don't know if she knows she's on.
She's muted.
Marilee, go ahead.
You're muted.
Hi, Marilee Reesbeck. I had my hand raised for questions about the energy presentation, but it didn't look like you were taking questions about that.
We aren't, and now we're talking just about consent agenda resolutions.
Right, yeah, I don't have a current question. Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll come back to you in public comment. Thank you. All right, Mrs. Stone, do you want to?
Nancy Stone, 10 Fielding Road in Short Hills. Let's see, it's 146 for this. Wait, so that pertains to the 14,000 that you're voting on this evening for that presentation that was made earlier. So my question I have is, does that any way affect the drinking water in the town at all? Has that been tested? So Diane's saying no.
He made during his, I'm sorry, during his presentation, I'm sorry.
We're gonna,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna take, you,
Okay.
you-
So I would like to know if that affects the drinking water in the town, because I think that would be important for people to know. Also, it's interesting how the town owned the property, but they couldn't keep track on who was the one that which tanks contaminated the property, because who knows who it was. So it could have been Exxon that did it. Maybe they could have done a class action lawsuit. I'm not a lawyer, but against every single person to figure out who did it. But then that could have been very costly, and I'm not advocating. I hate lawyers. I'm sorry. So I do not advocate lawsuits. Sorry, Jeff. I do. I'm not a fan. So if anything could be done amicably, I love you, Jeff, but not as a lawyer. You're doing a great job with us, but I personally, if you can negotiate without litigation, that's always a preferred avenue that I like to take. So that would be something that would be of interest to me. Let me just take the bills list. It would be wonderful to have a comparison like we did when I was treasurer of the DMDA of where we're at each stage of the game to make a comparison for budget and actual. That would be really helpful for the public to have full transparency as far as the budget is concerned, because many people do pay attention to it, and it's helpful to see. And this way we could have eliminated the situation where the overpayments of the legal fees that were made to Falcon and Busak, and I'm sure many other lawyers in this area. So anyway, I do humbly apologize to Jeff on a personal level, but I do maintain my position. I do not like lawyers.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda, we are going to, does anyone want to respond to any of the questions or comments made during the public comment on consent agenda items?
I'll just say, Mr. Powley, during his presentation, said that that plume does not leave that area. In fact, it's shrinking, so I'll just say that.
Does anyone else have
I'd
any?
like to understand what is this county long-term tax comment that was made? And also a comment made that we have increased taxes by $3 million?
Okay, so that was one of the things that I was going to address. But as far as the estimated tax bills go, the township has done this for as long as I can remember in estimating its tax bills, because most of the time, by the time that we are ready to put out tax bills for the third quarter, all right, we don't have the certification from the county, or maybe the schools haven't passed yet, or in some cases maybe it's us that has not passed their budget yet. But you still need to be ready to get your tax bills out. The increase is based on a 2%. It's not a scientific number, but what happens is in the fourth quarter, many of our residents will realize that it's reconciled, and that you either get an increase based on what has happened, or a decrease based on what has happened. I think many had noticed last year, or it may have been 2 years ago, that the amount went down as a result of the county's budget going down. So estimated tax bills are used to make sure that we can get those bills out in a timely fashion. I'd also just like to address the comment that was made that we hired special counsel to deal with the Beehive spot zoning lawsuit. That is not true. The township referred the matter to its insurance fund. The insurance fund took the case and is being represented by a law firm assigned by the Morris County Joint Insurance Fund.
Mr. McDonald, would you like to address the snow removal at all?
Well, the snow removal question is based on, wanting a comparison between last year and this year. But as far as the As far as the budgeted line, I mean, in the bills list, it shows that those bills that are from 2020 are applied to the 2020 budget. They were encumbered prior to the year lapsing. And because essentially there's a lot of work going on in December, you close out your books, you still have to encumber those funds. Those bills won't come until January, February, whenever they do. You still have to pay those bills and they're applied to the previous year's budget.
But we have not increased municipal tax rate, have we?
We have not, but again, I think the comments from the public are about wanting to know whether we spent the same amount on salt in 2021 as we did in 2020. However, the salt season in particular is, January, February, March, and then it doesn't start again until November, December. So it's.
No, so my comment wasn't on salt at all. I understand there was a lot of snow this year. I'm talking about the tax rate or the increase of taxes. We have not done it at municipal level. And there was also a comment made, county, that we are going to go to county and ask for something. No, we have no say here on the county. You as a resident and we as a resident can go to those county meetings as well and ask them. But as a board, I would rather just focus on a municipal budget than actually interfere with school or county.
Okay, Mr. Falcon, can you please just address the idea of Mr. Buzak's firm being the planning board attorney and involved in the declaratory judgment litigation settlement?
As far as I'm concerned, there is no conflict in that situation, but I've invited anyone who believes that there are facts or law which would substantiate the assertion that Mr. Buzak is in a conflict to please submit that, and we will, of course, take a look at that and evaluate it. But I have not opined on that. I have not written an opinion. I don't see any reason to do so.
Right? Okay, so that answers that question that's been floating around, that you don't see a need to. Okay, perfect. All right.
I wonder if I could address one other thing.
Please,
Just
yes.
if-
Do you want to address any of the comments?
It keeps coming up, and it seems to be unnecessarily mysterious. I learned a couple of weeks ago that Ed Mazer had submitted an OPA request for a settlement agreement between the United States Department of Justice and Millburn.
Louder?
Is it maybe the
United States
there you go.
Department of Justice and Millburn, and the response was there is no such document. That's because there is no such document. There is no such settlement. Nothing of that sort happened. I believe I told Ms. Pasternak one evening after one of these meetings that the U.S. Attorney closed the investigation in 2017. The United States Attorney commenced a preliminary investigation as to whether Millburn had engaged in discriminatory behavior under the RELUPA law in connection with the Kai Center. The township produced box loads and box loads and box loads of documents of everything having to do with that. It is apparently unknown to me, but it is apparently the process that the U.S. Attorney uses. They simply close their file. They don't tell anyone. They don't say anything whatsoever. They come to a conclusion based upon whatever analysis they go through and review of documents, and they close their file on this matter. There was no settlement agreement. I did mention, and perhaps this is why there's some confusion, there is a settlement agreement that had to do with all of the various cases in which Millburn and the Kai Center were engaged in, which is administered, as I indicated, by Mr. McDonald, and did involve RELUPA claims in part and a lot of other different kinds of claims, zoning claims. That was settled, and a settlement agreement was entered into, and I believe has been requested and obtained by interested parties. But as far as the federal investigation is concerned, that has really been over for years. We just learned about it last year because we had retained Jonathan Goldstein, an attorney in the township, who lives here, who had been the United States Attorney for New Jersey. And I said to him, what in the world's going on with that investigation that started years ago? Could you contact the U.S. Attorney's Office and find out what happened? And he reported back that, and he didn't know either, that it had actually been closed, the file had been closed in 2017. So there's no settlement agreement with the United States government. The investigation was opened, the investigation was closed, and that's
Great.
the end of it.
Okay, good. So hopefully that will
Thank
put
you,
that
Mr.
all to
Cotton.
rest.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Okay, does anyone, we good? We good?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-138 through Resolution 21-150, which are listed on the consent agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins?
Yes?
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Township Committee received the recommendations from the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Falcon, do you want to review the procedure at all?
No, I think it's laid out, what has happened is.
Mike.
Boy, can I be heard now?
Yes. You're clear.
This is a process which arises from the Historic Preservation Ordinance whereby the commission can seek the township's approval to nominate sites for landmark status. These 3 sites have been forwarded to you together with the documentation that is relied upon to base their request for that. And there are 3 very unusual sites. The parcel site, of course, which I was involved in acquiring for the township, and of course the Hessian House and the cemetery across the street. So that's the process here, is the request from the Historic Preservation Commission to you to endorse an application for nomination for landmark status.
Okay. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to the resolutions 21-151, 21-152, or 21-153?
Yes, I just want to make a positive comment that the Hessian House was owned by my friend's parents, Isabel and Harvey Kahn, for 55 years, and I called her daughter, my friend, to tell her it was going to be on tonight's agenda, and she was really excited, really, really pleased. So I want to give her a copy of this report. I think she'll be very excited to see that.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Committeewoman Miggins, do you want to make any comments?
You know, one of the things I found of interest with the Hessian House, and I was telling Committeewoman Eglo this, the way it got its name was that at the time of the Revolutionary War, there were 2 deserting Hessians that sought refuge and work from the Smith family who owned the house at the time. So they stayed in the house. They worked for board and lodging, and they were taken to military court. They were released. And one of them went up to Oak Ridge and married somebody. But it's just very interesting, the history on both the Hessian House and also the Parcel House. And the Parcel House, again, we were speaking of this earlier, that house was constructed in 1825. It was built by early settler families, and it's been part of the HABS program to document nationally significant historic structures since 1939. So, and it's been included in every single one of our town surveys. So, and the cemetery, of course, is right across the street, where we have 2 Revolutionary War heroes buried, along with the Parcel family members. So I think this is really important that we do this and save these.
And I also agree. I think that these are, as I would say, jewels of the township, and we want to protect them. And you know, I don't know, as long as I've been in town, I've always admired our historical sites, and it's really important that we preserve them for our kids.
Great, this is exciting news. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-151?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins?
Yes?
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-152?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes?
Ms. Stahl-Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-153?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
And roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes?
Ms. Stahl-Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wasserman is going to present.
Thank you, Mayor. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2574-21, Capital Ordinance of the Township of Millburn in the County of Essex, New Jersey, authorizing the making of various public improvements and acquisitions in, by, and for the township, appropriating therefore the sum of $1,624,700, and providing that such sum is appropriated shall be raised from capital improvement fund of the township. Mr. McDonald, just if you want to just touch on, on what this kind of covers.
Yeah, this is the township's capital ordinance, which covers, again, what is budgeted in the 2021 budget, to purchase anything that, is considered a capital project, which is a useful life of 5 years or above, or more than $5,000. This is generally where we purchase equipment, infrastructure, and other various, items to improve the township. This particular ordinance includes, dump trucks and plows for the Public Works Department, various equipment for the police department, some recreation awning and pool chairs, general improvements for streetscape project, with planters for Upper Millburn Avenue and Millburn Avenue, engineering work for drainage, and engineering work for road improvements as well. So there's quite a bit and quite a variety of things that will be getting done as a result of this ordinance.
And this would also include the trees that we were talking about at earlier meetings.
Tree planters, yep.
Wonderful. So, should I declare?
I declare the hearing open.
My name is Jeffrey Feld. I gave you my address before. I just want to clarify what was just said a couple minutes ago. And based on my letter, you're appropriating about $1.6 million, and I just heard it's based on the appropriation in the budget. When you go to put in my letter, I think it's sheet 26 of the budget that you approved last week, you only approved $1.5 million for capital improvement. How do you make up the difference?
Be happy to answer that. The township has a capital improvement fund, which is also considered capital fund balance, surplus. So in the event that we budget 1.5 and we spend 1.6 or 1.634 or 7, that money is then deducted from that capital surplus, which can be found in the annual financial statements.
Okay. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with the law.
May I have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes?
Ms. Stahl-Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Stahl-Eglo is scheduled for an introduction tonight.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2578-21, Ordinance Supplementing Chapter 3 of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Millburn to include an ordinance to control the presence of rodents and other vermin at retail food establishments. Brief explanation. I think it's pretty clear we want to control rodents. Right, we don't want that. And I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law on the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, June 15th, 2021.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins?
Yes?
Ms. Del Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on to old business. So the first item is the flex parking removal update. Mr. McDonald, do you have any more information for us at this time?
So the information that I have for the committee is, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, is that I've outlined sort of the timing of a project should the committee decide to go forward. I want to just outline what the 2018 process was and what we have, sort of an understanding of what this project would look like. And then again, I think it's more important that I answer any questions that you may have. In terms of timing, it is possible to move forward with the project should the committee decide to do so. It will be tight. There will be a lot of things that will need to be done in that time frame. We will need to introduce a bond ordinance, finalize that bond ordinance, advertise for the bids, award the bid, and then start the project. The understanding is that we have specifications from 2018 in which we, when we went out to bid for that project, and I think I had gone over previously, what occurred was that one of the bids came back as unresponsive and had to be rejected. The other was well above the township's engineer's estimate. In that project, it was bid as a daytime job with an alternate to do night work. The alternate was, an additional cost, so the township would have the decision to do the work during the day, or add that additional cost to do the work at night. The project would be the removal of the raised concrete portion up to the basalt paver, which is that gray brick that you see after the flex parking or the raised concrete. The limit would be no further than that. This project would not return the right-hand lane. It would restore drainage back to a traditional curb, and the road would be repaved in the areas that it was disturbed. Again, happy to answer any questions from the committee that they may have on the project, but that is the general outline of it.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. McDonald at this point? Okay, does anyone have
question,
any?
Mayor.
Yeah, no
I
questions.
said no question
No
there
questions,
from me.
okay. Does anyone have any comments that they would like to say at this point?
I would make a comment. I've really thought about this. I've slept on it. I've looked at the raised parking carefully. A lot of people will point out that it's always dirty. It's hard to park on. It's not great for our seniors. It's not easy for SUVs. There's a host of reasons, that have been enumerated why we should remove it. And it's something that I think that we should do, and I'll put in one however. The however is that while I think that we should move forward and get this done, I think that this project has to be done properly. I think it has to be done carefully. I've talked to our merchants along Millburn Avenue. I've promised them that we would, make sure that there was a project manager, that we would have a plan, a careful plan, and I think that we're working in a tight time frame, and I almost think that we have to make sure that while we may agree to do it, that it's more important that it be done properly, and if it can't be done properly, this year or this August, I think we should make the decision to do it next August. I just think that we should make a decision to do it, but it's really important that we have a proper plan, we have a site manager, and that we can assure our merchants that we're going to take care of them properly. And so I'm kind of saying two things. One is that we should do it, but I'm also saying that if the time frame is too tight or we can't do it properly in August or whenever we were trying to do it, I would almost recommend that we consider doing the project next year, if we had to. I'm just saying, if things fell into place, then we could get it done properly this year. I'm in favor of doing that, but I need to be assured also that it's done properly, carefully, and that we have the right people doing it.
No
So
pressure, Mr. McDonald. No pressure.
That's really what I wanted to say.
Well, I gave my big grandstand speech last week. I'm not going to give it again. You can go to the YouTube and see it from 2 weeks ago. But I believe it's our duty, it's imperative, it is the right thing to do, and we've got everything laid out. And of course, we're going to have a project manager. Of course, we're going to watch things. We will never let happen again what happened. So I'm just going to end it there and ask the mayor to move on with the procedure if that's appropriate.
Well, do any of the other committee members have anything they'd like to say?
My 2 cents?
Please.
Yes, we can prepare for the worst and deliver the best, but there will always be room for whether you do it this year or next year. I really like the way Committeewoman Eglo said it last time. Things are not going to get cheap next year. So I think I'm all for this project.
Thank you.
Okay.
You pushed me there. Thank you.
May I have a motion to authorize the township to advertise to go out to bid for the removal of the flex parking in our downtown?
I would love to make that motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins?
Yes.
Ms. Ball Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the general code updates. Mr. McDonald, do you have any more information on these for us?
Yes. So I would just, so step one in sort of these other code updates that we are, the township is looking to introduce in conjunction with the zoning ordinance that also was just, that was read on first reading on May 4th. We are looking to provide the committee with some general code ordinances that will also assist in protections to the business community, to the residents, to the users, to the visitors, and all of that. The first was the rodent abatement ordinance that you passed on first reading tonight, which basically states that every restaurant or food use has to have a rodent abatement plan. The second is before you tonight in a draft form to enumerate restaurants under the noise ordinance where it is not it's not currently enumerated. Essentially, what it does is it establishes a I'll just read it briefly, but it says retail food establishments and bars, in addition to such noise that may be generated in section 3-7.2 I after 10 p.m. and before 7 a.m. it shall be unlawful for the owner, employee, agent, or patron of any retail food establishment or bar of the township of Millburn to allow, make, and so on and so forth, which basically essentially to provide a structure to our restaurants, outdoor use, and noise, to make sure that they're being good citizens.
Great.
The other one is still in draft process, which would be to establish a business registration for all businesses. Again, we're still toying around with exactly how that will look, what information we'll be looking to obtain, but essentially this is to and whether it is only going to apply to the B4, since that's the only district that the parking requirements were eliminated in or waived in. And so we are still working through that, but that will be before the Township Committee in due time to consider that as well. If the Township Committee is okay with the way that this ordinance is, the noise ordinance is enumerated and drafted, we'll make sure that's in front for introduction at the June 1st meeting. If you have any questions, happy to answer, or Mr. Falcon can answer.
So I have a question. So as we move to update our zoning, so this is actually a safeguard for our residents, so that if we do have new permitted uses and new businesses that come in, this is a safeguard in terms of the noise requirement. So at 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock is 10 o'clock. They don't have to worry that new business is going to create a ruckus at night and they're going to have problems.
Well, I think correct, but I mean, I think more so it gives us teeth to be able to point to a codified portion that says, you know, this particular use should not be creating such noise after 10 p.m.
Right.
Yep.
So that's for existing restaurants as well?
Correct.
Right, so no bands, no
Correct.
American Idol past 10 o'clock?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it's something that we should definitely do, and I think this goes into the plan of you know, bringing a good standard to our residents.
Okay, so are we ready to move that to, looks like we have consensus, so we'll draft an ordinance for first reading.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. The Development Review Subcommittee. Committeewoman Miggins, would you like to update us on your work with that?
Yes, well, Mr. Falcon and I have been working, so he's, which you all got late, so you'll want to review it, but a resolution to create a committee to study this and make recommendations. Committeewoman Aglow and I will be working with that for a development review technical coordinating committee, and then appropriate amendments to the land development ordinance of the township to incorporate the same. So that's something we'll be working on. We discuss this. Mr. Falcon, would you like to speak to this a little bit for us?
Sure.
Only with a microphone.
Pick up the
Yes,
microphone,
thank
as
you.
I usually neglect to do. What we've attempted to recite here are the various tasks which would be undertaken by this working group in developing a development review committee, and they are enumerated there. And then there is also suggested for the working group the people who would be tasked with the actual work, the planning board chair, the land use administrator, the planner, planning board attorney, the chairman of the Board of Adjustment, Shade Tree Advisory Board chair, Historic Preservation chair, and the Environmental Commission chair. You are in this giving them 120 days to take a look at this, formulate the points that should be included in an ordinance in order to put this into your book, and then you'll have an actual program in front of you to consider. So this is the first step to appoint the group that will work on this and the topics that they will discuss.
Okay. So do we need to, do we need to vote on this, or
No,
do we
no.
just keep doing what they're doing?
This would be on for the first meeting in June. This
Okay.
is to show the text of what will be before you at that time.
All right.
I've asked a question, Mayor, last time on this.
Okay.
If we can have a, it's not towards the retainer that we pay monthly. It's going to be charged hourly by the legal firm?
There's a provision that I put in here, Committeeman. I hope it was responsive to your request that prior to commencing any work, the professional consultants will provide an estimate to the business administrator concerning the fees estimated to be charged to the township for their participation. The township committee will then authorize the business administrator to notify the professionals to proceed with their work as members of the working group, amending their existing agreements with the township, establishing a working budget for each, and providing for additional funds if reasonably required to complete the work. So I think there's a process there where they will estimate it, you'll review it, they will then amend
You're
their
asking a
existing professional services agreements to provide for that additional compensation.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just had a question on that. That Mr. Falcon is for the year? They're
No,
going to
this
estimate
is-
it for the year?
No, this is for the duration of the work of this working group only.
Okay, gotcha.
So what I saw in here was 160 days is what's going to take to develop this group and what the
120.
I think it's 120, yeah.
So I was looking for what will it cost for that 120 days? And that's what you're saying, that you will get that cost in there before we start the work.
Before they do any work, they
Right,
will
okay.
submit that to you for your
Appreciate
approval.
it. Thank you.
All right, I think this is very much needed, and people are excited about it, so thank you for doing this work.
Thank you.
Okay, on to new business.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Oh,
I
yes.
have one thing of old business, if I
Yes.
may. And Committeeman Vinayak brought it up a little bit, the cell tower. So I had Mr. McDonald put a little map up, and that area, which whatever it may or may not be used for, is 5 acres, approximately. The cell tower is in the furthest, I guess that's north corner. It's 300 square feet, so it's a tiny, tiny piece, maybe the size of somebody's beautiful kitchen. And I think it will provide cell service, and we could, if we're interested in going forward to provide this for our community, who has really bad cell service in some areas and dropped cell service. And I've been asking a lot of my friends who has landlines, and I'm so shocked how few people have landlines. Richard, you don't have a landline. I have a landline. So I think this is something that's really so important. I just want to pass this down, and you could all see that little piece of square, what it would take. So whatever may or may not go there, this would not interfere with what's there.
So I am not against it. As I said, I am actually for the whole project, holistic project. It could be somewhere in the middle with the parking lot for the field. It could be on the side. It could be anywhere. All I'm saying is if there is a rough draft of what will be allocated towards DEP, or not DEP, DPW, and the field and the cell tower.
Okay, look at that map.
Right.
Yeah, that would not interfere. It's a tiny piece. And I think what we get from that is really, I mean, it's something we have to talk about if we want to go out.
So, right,
Yeah.
like let's just say that we wanted to move forward and put a cell tower up there.
Okay.
What would be the next steps? Would we have to identify a service provider, or how would that?
No, actually, it's a competitive bidding process. So Verizon is the one who brought it to our attention. However, it does not mean that Verizon will be the one to build the tower. It does not mean Verizon will be the only person on the pole. It's just that they've recognized that they have a deficiency in the area, and they're looking to somehow get it placed there. Cell phone companies and providers have to approach a municipality first to see if it can be, towers can be built on municipally owned land, whether that's East Orange or Millburn Township. So essentially, the next step would be to start the bidding process.
Okay, so let's just let's at the next meeting, we'll put it back on, we'll talk, we'll go visit, and we'll kind of see where we are in 2 weeks.
And I'll gather
And you'll
additional
get-
information for the township committee.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can keep that.
Old business is now complete. New business. Mr. Vinyayak, you'd like to bring up?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
zoning
you, Mayor.
accessory, Yep.
New business zoning accessory use revision. This is in respect to multifamily homes. I had been on planning board meetings, and I've heard a lot of residents come in and talk about or against the rooftop deck. And everybody's against it, and I know 85 Woodland has taken that out on its own on the application, but they were trying to push earlier, and I just kind of heard overall, and I did not want to bring this up before because of the voting. What do people think, and what do you guys think? I am here to actually see if you're also keen on 2 things to impose on multifamily homes, whatever comes up next in town. One is we do not allow rooftop deck. That's not in our town. And second is to have move in and move out parking for, or move in and move out, on premises. So loading, unloading for move in, move outs, it needs to be on their own premises. It could be indoor, it could be outdoor. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't be on the road, on the public road. There are a lot of things that I heard about the safety of kids, safety of people. So I'm actually trying to propose and get an understanding from residents, from our town, from my fellow TC members. What do you guys think?
Should I start? I think to have a blanket prohibition, is that the word, for a rooftop deck might be too broad, depending. I know there was a lot of opposition to it because it was next to the Arboretum, and the Arboretum never came out and spoke, which was kind of strange. You know, everyone was talking for the Arboretum. I don't know what they thought about it. And I don't know, depending where these multi-homes will go, if it should be a blanket. I don't know. And as far as, what was the other thing? Oh, loading and unloading. I think it also depends where the property is. Like, I don't know, you know, when there's a big moving van coming into town on these little skinny roads, they do block the road for a short time, for a long time if you're moving into a big house. An apartment, I don't know if it's feasible, if it can be a blanket ordinance. I just don't know.
So I hear you, and I've thought this through a lot, not for a day, not for a week. I've thought this through for months and months together. One is, yes, you're right. If there is only 2-3 apartments on a commercial building, that's fine. They cannot have that space to move in and move out within that building. I understand that. So we can put in, like if it's over 10 units, they have to have move in and move out in the complex. When we have 50, 60 apartment building complex that is coming in, they better have it. When they can think through the apartments, they can increase the garage size. They have extra parking available. Might as well have a truck available standing or a parking place for a truck to come in and do the move in and move outs. And secondly is on the rooftop deck. There are people that come out and talk their mind. There are people, more people sitting quiet, and we need to watch out for every resident of our town. So I believe that was the sentiment I've heard a lot, not only on that meeting, even outside that meeting. So I propose that and then see other people what they think.
So Committeeman Vinayak, I think what I'm hearing you say is that when these multi-family dwellings are coming into town, that their design structure should be such that when they're designing the buildings, that it should have their parking to be able to have people move in and out, is what you're saying? That
Right.
it's, so when they start to.
accommodate a truck.
To accommodate the trucks. And then as far as rooftop decks, I concur with you. I don't think there should be any rooftop decks. And in fact, I think from a residential perspective, there shouldn't be front-facing decks or side-facing decks. That those should be, not on the second floor anyway, that should be in the back of the property. You don't want to go outside, or you don't want to be looking in your kitchen, or somebody's looking out at you. You know, they're sitting on their deck. There's a few houses in town where they're starting to put that, and we've never had that before.
So, and on that thought also, there are plans that come through, and they don't show both of these. And when towards the end of it, it comes up, oh, they're going to have a rooftop deck, and they're going to have a street loading, unloading. So if this is out there as a law, then they can have whatever on their plan. But if it's not allowed, then planning board will look at this, zoning board will look at this, and we are saving our township resident, at least that character of the town.
I'm 100% with you, Mr. Committeeman Vinayak.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree also. I mean, we also have noise pollution, light pollution. You know, I don't think our residents should be subjected to that if, you know, if possible. I know with Woodland Road, it was more of a arboretum sensitive, you know, or it was perceived as maybe it was near the arboretum. But in general, I don't think we should have it, and I don't see an advantage for the town to have it.
What if it was downtown? Like, what if, I don't know, if it was downtown? I just don't know how comfortable I am with a blanket. So if it was this ordinance, could they go and get a variance then? They could still try to get a variance if it, or would it just be like prohibited, don't even get a variance? It's never can be. Is that, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they could.
If possible, I like to put it as like a drive-in window. If it's not allowed, it's not allowed.
You can always apply for a variance.
Okay, so similar to that.
Right.
If you can apply for that, then you can apply for the other.
And also, you have to take into account houses who have corner lots. They have, their deck, in essence, could be on a street. So I think we just have to be really careful that it's the way it's written and interpreted.
No, I'm not talking about the single-family home.
No,
I'm-
for deck.
I am.
Ms.
What's
Miggins
that?
is.
I am as well. I think that there should not be second floor, front-facing or side-facing decks. I mean, you're
Oh,
starting.
I'm sorry,
you're starting
second
to-
floor
yeah, second
side-facing.
floor, not your first floor,
Oh.
but your second floor. You have some homes that are getting built in town now that have, you know,
And this is, and this is, so this is what Committeewoman Miggins is speaking about. We're also talking about at our reevaluation of the entire zoning code.
Yes,
So
yes. I'm not,
So what I think that we could possibly do is potentially draft something and then have some information sessions like we did with the other ordinance changes so that we can have a larger conversation about it and get some more input and then kind of take it from there. Does that sound something?
Yeah. So what would be the next step on this?
The next step would be to sort of take what was discussed here and see how that stacks currently into the zoning code, where that would be placed, what it would, what it would look like. In particular, we have a residential zone, multifamily R8 zones that would have to be addressed there. I think, as an accessory use or customer use. So, we just have to find out exactly where that and draft something for the committee to review. And then prior to having an introduction or anything like that, if it's desired that we do some education and public engagement on it, then we would go down that road.
So before we give anything to Mr. Falcon, how about just internally you work with Mr. McDonald and Committeewoman Miggins to draft something that we can all see, and then we'll talk about it.
Works good.
Sounds
Thank
good?
you.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any other items of new business to address tonight? Nope. Okay, time for public comment. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and address. Speak loudly. You have 3 minutes. Please adhere to the time limit. You'll have you'll have a warning. Should we take a 5-minute?
Yeah, can we take
We're going to take a 5-minute before public comment. All right, stretch your legs, use the restroom. Okay.
I don't know if there's a He's very magnanimous. Oh, we're taking one away.
There's still another one there.
The point is that we're very urbanizing, and we in this town don't need that kind of, and that's what we're working on. There, we promise. We promise.
But Diane is right. If it doesn't come, says property, they might want them.
But maybe not because of the people that live across the street.
That's if they do it on the back.
So you're not wrong about it.
I know, but, so my point, well, that's why it's a conversation. It used to be a conversation.
It still is.
Is a form of protection. But you should check into that deck, they kept it. Yeah. No, they took one away. That variance no way, assuming they don't.
A lot of those properties
Oh, I know.
meet the buffer requirement.
I'm not worried. Well, number one, they don't fully understand that.
Let's go Shakespeare.
Since we're removing 125 foot, it's not clear in the written legislation, ordinance, what the requirement is.
You're not.
Well, to the point that you can get a variance for anything, the distance, building height, the width, you can get a variance for anything. So you can't use that argument to say you're losing. You're not losing.
No, well, you're not losing 125 feet as a trip.
I'm losing it as a variance requirement. That's my point.
Unless but.
I understand they have to meet other
Bunch of conditions.
bunch of conditions.
I went to the labor
But-
before.
So one,
So Mike didn't make it, that's too bad.
I know, you know what? He got today, and I think that he got one.
right,
And then
exactly.
the
And that-
heat
and
got
that's
one,
fine.
and I didn't cook him dinner.
Yeah, and
I
then
just
again,
pulled
there's
the
that
service.
balance, right?
Oh, I'm not saying there isn't a balance. I'm just saying by losing that,
It's okay. Did you get to hear it?
Yeah, I heard most of it. I left for maybe a minute at a time twice, that's all. So I heard.
Did you get your little
But
plan?
as soon as I saw it, yes, thank you, it was on my computer. Now it's sitting in the.
Right now.
Yeah, part sun, it's part sun.
But when I saw Andy, he was red and sweating like crazy. I said, oh.
He was nervous.
Jesus. No, he was on the sun all day.
He looked chill. He was great.
But he did that, and you had, I said to him, the word that I used was, it flowed very good.
Yes, yes.
It was very good,
Yeah, because I knew
I
the
should
question.
have taken notes and said, oh, come on, I don't know.
Yes, they can do that now.
He even said to me today, well, you really
He's
I
so
don't
proud.
think he's mulched 2 years.
He better mulch. He mulched me. He mulched me.
Well, I know that he has customers and he has so much, it seems like as soon as he loses one, he gets another.
I know.
Something. And he hates to say no unless there's some reason.
He's very good at what he does.
And he's only got these 2 guys, he's very concerned.
I know. He's doing a great job.
Well, he enjoys it because he loves to see the best beforehand. When
Yeah.
it turns out.
He likes to fix it.
Sometimes, you
Yeah, I know.
know. But he was made to do this. You know, when he was 16, he used to, his first job was working in the nursery on the Worcester.
I did not know that.
You know now where the
gray building.
What did they call that building with the funny glass?
Yeah, I know.
Fishbowl building, whatever it is.
So much has changed.
There was a nice big nursery and he did Christmas trees.
But when you tear the door.
I was like this.
I'm going to burst out.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna resume the meeting.
Okay, we'll talk.
Okay, so public comment,
You're not on.
public comment. Public comment, there we go. Please adhere to the time limit of 3 minutes. At 2:50, you'll have 30 seconds to wrap up your comments.
Hello again, Oyinwolabi, 46 Maple Street. So I have a couple of comments and maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Would you speak up, please? I'm so sorry, I just can't hear
Or maybe
you.
take off your mask for a little
It's this
bit.
Maybe
mask.
pull it down a little?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of comments and maybe 1 or 2 questions. So I came tonight to actually ask questions regarding the consent agenda, but then I find myself jotting a couple of things down as the meeting progressed. So this one, so first I would like to say thank you for answering some of my questions. And I would like, to publicly state that most of the time it's as simple as that. Just answering all public comment questions and keeping things as transparent as possible. I think if we do that, and I'm not saying otherwise, but if we do that, we wouldn't have, the same questions over and over and over again at every meeting. So this particular question is to Mayor Purpose. It is not cool at all to take away Zoom participation. This is the new virtual environment. And I feel very strongly, as you felt, that we embrace it. It stays here on the agenda, and I'll read from where it says, members of the public who wish to participate in the meetings may electronically, by phone, or computer via Zoom, with details listed below, blah, blah, blah. With that said, I don't know if you guys have asked to see what the Millburn residents think of this. If you take away this platform, most of our residents would not be able to join in on the discussions and conversations. There are still people with limitations to attend the meeting physically, and you stated that you feel very strongly in taking this away in August. I beg you not to do that. I'll appreciate if you can probably give an answer as to why you feel very strongly in taking this platform away. That's number 1. And my other question is, why are we taking the dump away? This is another huge bill for Millburn Short Hills taxpayers. If one of you can explain why to me, because I'm not clear, and I'm honestly not clear, I would like to know why we're doing this. What is my other comment that I have here? Yes, I wanted to also talk about why we have 30 seconds. Shoot. So the planning board, I think they take some training. Zoning board, on the Board of Education, we have training requirements. I would love to hear or see what kind of training township committees are required to take, because I believe that if we have this type of training, we won't be running into all the problems that we're having. Or maybe I'm wrong, and there's training that I don't know about. You guys can enlighten me. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and your questions.
Elaine Becker, 257 Brookhaven Way. I was noticed with this ordinance. I got it yesterday. No, I got it today, I guess. Yesterday was Monday. And so I have some comments about it. I may be a little mixed up on some of them, but from what I've read, this is what I find out. The current zoning in B2 with conditional uses is the paragraph about the restaurants and so forth. Closest part of the structure is not less than 25 feet from the nearest lot line of a single-family dwelling in a residential district. The proposed is now to make that permitted, not a conditional use, but permitted. No matter what it is, it's permitted among those kinds of restaurants and so forth. And then it's also under conditional use, where it will be less than the 125 feet, can go for approval of a conditional use. B3 is pretty much the same thing. So the way it reads and the way I understand it, the committee is proposing to change what is now conditional to permitted, and what is not in the ordinance is made conditional with less than the 125 feet. So what I want to know is who is benefiting about this and why, when these changes are very detrimental to the neighborhoods. It's not right to change this, which was made in the first place to protect the neighborhoods. Go look at the master plan and you will see that you're violating the first goal and the first objective of the master plan. And I feel very strongly about it, not only because I'm affected by it, but because it's been there for almost 30 years. And I really don't like the idea of changing that. The changes are out of sync with the first goal and first objective of the master plan. So please, check that out. And I guess I'll be back in the public hearing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Okay. And I should say that, Mr. Falcon, don't you still do the municipal,
Planning and zoning
yeah,
courses, yeah.
Well, yeah, that was a very useful course.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Patricia Morielli, 1 Claremont Drive, Short Hills, and I'm here this evening to voice my opposition to the proposed removal of the 125-foot requirement for restaurants in the B2, B3 zone. The restaurant zones, which were introduced last 2 weeks ago, May 4th, Ordinance 257721. When my family and I purchased our home in the Glenwood neighborhood, we were told that the township zoning ordinances prohibited restaurants in the commercial business zone on Morris Turnpike behind our property. Currently, B2, B3 zoning requirements specify that restaurants have at least a 125-foot distance requirement to a residential property. The exact language, as we just heard, is not less than 125 feet. The proposed zoning changes to the ordinance move restaurants to permitted uses and remove the word "not." This will now allow a restaurant to be less than 125 feet from my property. How close is not clear, as our property line is 4 feet from a commercial property. I've spoken to 4 local real estate agents. All the agents have said that my property values would be detrimentally impacted if a restaurant were to go in directly behind my home. With the proposed B2, B3 zoning change, removing the 125-foot requirement, my home and neighborhood will be detrimentally impacted. The commercial properties behind and beside my home, however, will be increasing in value. The residents of Millburn, particularly the homeowners in Glenwood, who have properties that back up onto or adjoin the commercial properties on Morris Turnpike, are being zoned against. This proposed ordinance change will harm the Glenwood homeowners. Commercial property owners knew the zoning regulation when they purchased their properties. The proposed change to the B2, B3 commercial zoning districts will increase the value of the commercial properties along Morris Turnpike, while the residential homeowners experience a decrease in value. We expect zoning regulations to protect our property value and do not expect the Township Committee to change the zoning regulations that reduce property values for homeowners. The elected officials should protect the residents in Millburn. I oppose the ordinance as read 2 weeks ago at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pull my mask down if that's okay. Jay Morelli, 1 Claremont Drive, Short Hills. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight regarding the B2, B3 business zone ordinance change allowing restaurants within 125 feet. And thank you to Mr. Vinayak and Mr. McDonald for getting back to me on some questions I had regarding the audience. I've got questions mainly in 3 different areas, and I'm actually going to start with the third area because we discussed earlier new conditions that are being proposed for restaurants within the business zones. Does the proposed ordinance include a method for monitoring compliance with some or all of the new conditions for restaurants? Will Millburn need to continue to rely on its residents to monitor compliance? Does Millburn have a good track record for resolving ordinance compliance issues in a timely manner? How often do compliance issues require a court action? Do other towns delegate authorities to be responsible for supervising and monitoring specific ordinances for odors, for example? Does Millburn have any plans to beef up its monitoring and enforcement specifically pertaining to the new restaurant requirements? If you do not monitor and enforce requirements, what's the point of writing them into your ordinance? Second area of questions regarding zoning process. Is zoning board approval required today if a restaurant wants to move into a building that had not been previously used for that purpose and is within 125 feet? And is a distance variance required in that case today? When the new ordinance passes, will a distance variance be required? What will that requirement be? If you are in B3, can a restaurant be within 30 feet of your property? Can it be within 10 feet? We've heard that you can get a variance approval for anything. So what will the ordinances be? Finally, with regard to specific conditions like odor minimization, do other towns like Summit, Livingston, and Springfield have ordinances pertaining to odors from restaurants or food preparation in general? Do any other towns require systems to eliminate odors? Our proposal is to minimize them. Can I get 2 more points in?
Please, quickly.
Do any towns expressly prohibit objectionable odors? And if so, why has Millburn chosen to use the term minimize versus the language other towns have used? Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Jeffrey Feld. Usually I don't agree with Liz Cheney in public, but what she said last week about the importance of your oath and the rule of law, being an attorney...
Mr. Feld, can you speak into the microphone for our benefit, please? I can't hear you when you turn your head.
Yes, I'm not a retired attorney. I do take an oath, and I do adhere to the rule of law. If you looked at yesterday's op-ed in the Star-Ledger, they talked about the need for independent press. And
Mr. Feld, I can't hear you when you look that
Will you
way. I
please not
really
interrupt
can't.
me because you're taking my time away, please?
I'll add 4
I
seconds.
paid for this mic, to quote Ronald Reagan. I will speak. Speak. Smart. Let's talk about certain things. On May 3rd, the state delivered a letter to the CID telling that the CID application for Main Street, New Jersey designation was defective. Has anyone from elected official told the public that public fact? They didn't say that at the CID meeting, and it was on May 3rd. What happened on May 4th? You approved the budget for the CID, and you knew that the designation, that the state had questions. And when you looked at who the letter was the head of the office, the state office of local planning services, CCing an attorney. We have a serious problem about the CID. When we talk about rooftop decks, there was a fraud committed on this community that the public did not know that there was rooftop decks. That's the whole issue that's going on in the planning board and Mr. Buzak. Mr. Buzak is sitting there telling you what you can say, but he's also the one that negotiated this settlement. That's the conflict. And when we talk about conflicts, I got 4 members on here that sat on planning boards. Isn't there a per se rule that if there's an application that you are located within 200 feet of the proposed application, you have to disqualify yourself? So therefore, I'm going to ask the mayor, did you ever get an opinion regarding the flex planning, parking, removal, whether you have a conflict of interest and you should recuse yourself from any consideration from that matter? That you contaminated what you discussed about today. Did you get an opinion about that? I don't think so. That's conflict of interest. That's a basic fact that you get in planning board education. As to the virtual, robust, informed civic participation, how dare you say that we're going to a new normal, that the people that are at home cannot participate? You do not accept written submitted questions prior to the meetings. You are an outlier. I mean, how much more can we do? You adopted a Civil Rights Act. How many times are we going to be writing letters to this gentleman to say whether you violate our civil rights by depriving us and suppressing information? As to zoning ordinances, there's a distinction between zoning and police powers. The rodent ordinance is a police power ordinance. When you look at the amended ordinance that we just had, you're putting police powers, combining them. They should be separated. I know my time is up, but I will be back.
Okay. Can we go to the phone or to the Zoom?
Hello, David Cosgrove. Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you. Good evening.
Okay, good evening. David Cosgrove, 99 Oakview. I wanted to say thank you, folks, for addressing the rooftop deck issue. And I certainly am in favor of a blanket, a blanket bar of that. And that's the only way to effectively do it. It's a flat out. You can't have a rooftop deck. And if someone wants to make an application for some relief from that, let's make it clear they don't have a right to that. For the members of the board, the committee, that did not go to all of the planning board meetings, the attorney for the applicant at that planning board meeting, more than one, was taking the position that they had an absolute right to the deck. Absolute right to the deck. No question about it. That's what they were arguing. I also would comment, Committeewoman Eglo made a comment that the Arboretum did not make a comment. They did participate in one of the hearings. I think they were listening in on all of them, but they actually said stuff at one about the rooftop deck. And I can also tell all of you that my opposition to that rooftop deck was not just because of the Arboretum, it's because I live next door to it. And we should also be clear that because there was no ban on the rooftop deck apparently made as part of the settlement agreement, they still have one rooftop deck. They only withdrew one deck, and they still have the second deck there, which happens to be the larger of the rooftop decks. But thank you very much. You have my support and whatever help I can offer on the flat out ban of the rooftop decks, because trust me, every one of these developers, Annie says, looks like they have a rooftop deck. They're all going to want massive rooftop decks. And there's a lot of residents who don't want it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Sarah Sherman, 42 Greenwood Drive. First, I would also like to agree with Mr. Cosgrove and say that having watched the planning board meetings, I do believe that you're moving in the right direction for zoning accessory use because the rooftop deck looks as if it's a trend that may continue. But I need clarification on two things. One is regarding the noise ordinance for restaurants, which I think is also a very good idea. I'm interested in the language used because I would hope that it applies to live performances. The reason that I say that is that last summer we were awakened in the middle of the night in South Mountain by comedy shows coming from a location on Main Street. So I'm curious as to whether the language of the ordinance covers not just music and bands and something like that, but also a live performance of some kind. And then finally, I was rather confused by the location of the Exxon station in the presentation earlier tonight. The speaker said that the station was located at the corner of Morris and Essex. I am confused. Could you please clarify that for me? Thank you.
It was Maine and Essex.
Okay, Maine and Essex. Maine and Essex. Okay, so in other words, that's the parking lot where the clock is?
Yes, the farmer's market parking lot.
The farmer's market parking lot. And that is adjacent to the river at that point. I have to say it raises some questions for me for the other gas station that is of interest in my neighborhood, which is New Jersey Energy property, which is adjacent to the river. Now, the Maine and Essex location, that's, we are told, owned by the township. You do not own the New Jersey Energy property, right? The township has no ownership in that.
Correct. Okay. Correct. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's okay.
Good evening, Perry Urso. Thank you for your time. My efforts in contesting the SID far supersede my own professional and personal benefits. This impeding tax strips local land business owners of motivation or incentive to continue contributing to grow our community. The comparison between Short Hills and surrounding towns has been made on multiple occasions. However, we fail to make mention of one major variable, the mall at Short Hills. We simply cannot align our expectations of Millburn Avenue with what neighboring downtown areas who lack the amenity of a boutique high-end mall. We can put blame on local landlords, but I am certain we can all agree that our vacancies are no fault of our own. We have made tremendous efforts to work with our potential tenants to ensure full execution of lease agreements, from tenant inducements for construction, store build-out costs, to base rent abatements to allow for businesses to generate revenue prior to obligations of rent. We have been creative, generous, understanding, and most importantly, forgiving of default, lack of payment, and early terminations. All while we've seen little generosity, understanding, and again, most importantly, and forgiveness of real estate tax extensions and relief unless property owner filed a tax abatement. To be sure I'm clearly articulating, I am directly referring to the gross lack of consideration for the individuals who have actually been carrying the financial burdens caused by the pandemic. We have stood nearly idle while our life savings rapidly diminish. And what does our local government plan to do? Reverse the catastrophic hardship and preserve our community as we once knew. You suggest overtaxing the very people who are currently suffering. I may not work in government, so please excuse my naiveness, but where's the logic here? The township plans to improving districts by overtaxing commercial property owners with low tenancies. This is what once a great town is now facing. Short Hills Mall is currently seeking a tax abatement. The same should be offered to landlords and potential tenants in consideration for leaseholds, not irrationally or arbitrarily imposing additional unnecessary tax inflations. We are not surrounding towns template, nor can we be held to the standard, especially when the expanded districts are not considered a pedestrian mall. However, the focus clearly is on downtown. Please don't fool yourselves. The current CID has not provided the same advertising, marketing, and customer outreach benefits as other major consumer-driven communities have. Why would we, the realtor or the landlord, be held to the same foot traffic demands when we see a fraction of the foot traffic? Or is this just a campaign platform? Unjustifiably overtaxing the pillars who built and continue to support this community will surely bring further distress to our community and perpetuate the already devastating vacancies rates in town. Without our local government support and loyalty to us, the residents, the business, the landowners, the face of the local retail will forever change negatively. You will attract a less attentive landlord and business owners, which will only continue to alter the face of commercial retail in town. Just remember, you do it for one, you do it for all.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comment. For everyone on the line, let's please adhere to the 3-minute time limit. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Marilee Reesbeck, 91 Whittingham Terrace, Millburn. I'd like to applaud the Township Committee for voting to approve the bid process for the removal of flex parking. Thank you. I'm curious, does anyone know when the ordinance limiting restaurants within 125 feet went into effect? Because I grew up in town, and there was a large restaurant on Millburn Avenue, Upper Millburn Avenue, named Buxton's, on the corner of Millburn Avenue and Baltusrol Way, backing onto Meadowbrook. It was there for many, many years, and it was open for lunch and for dinner, although it closed maybe 30 years ago. So I'm just curious about when this ordinance went into effect. Regarding the presentation for the new approach to electric use, why is this being done as opt-out and not opt-in? The presenter said that there would be rate stability and no variable monthly rates, but I'd like to know if the annual rates have increased since the inception of the program, because she said there have been changes, but I didn't have a sense for whether it went up. And is this just electric? Because I didn't hear mention of including natural gas. And I would really like to see one utility company service both gas and electric in our community, instead of paying JCP&L and PSE&G separately. Neighboring towns, such as Maplewood, have a combined energy supplier, and I believe there are a handful of households in Short Hills that do have a combined energy supplier as well. I'm also concerned about the response time in post-storm emergencies. I'm not clear on how this would work. We've had a number of severe outages for days or weeks in recent years. After Hurricane Sandy, most of the town was out for 9 days. So I'm concerned about getting back online in the event of another major electric or power event, because I don't want a repeat of that. If anything, I want it improved. And the presenter mentioned that they were active in 44 towns, but I didn't see any in Essex or Union County. I saw a lot of other counties, but not the local counties nearest us. And also, I'm not clear on whether this option provides significantly more renewable energy than our current arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you. 1993. Okay. Okay. We'll get, okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. Dominique Urso, 514 Millburn Avenue. I would just like to thank the committee and Alex for reporting that they will put in the last speed bump on Jarvis Lane. I really appreciate that consideration of doing that, as in the end, it is on the town's property, town road, so thank you for that. I also would like to add and recognize Shannon Cross's efforts as we are seeing some relief since COVID. She solely stepped up and got the flag program going. Her efforts should not go unnoticed. And so how about a proclamation for all her efforts and good deed? And lastly, please rescind the SID. We as property business owners and landlords are just trying to get over this hurdle of COVID and make up for lost ends meet. So your consideration to rescind this would be greatly appreciated to help us. Thank you. Taxation is not the answer to help struggling business. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like everybody on the call got to speak. Is it?
Jean Pasternak. I would like to say that I agree with the comment about the taking the Zoom option away. I think it really limits people, and I think since the Board of Ed is not doing that, and you heard the woman from MMAC say that Zoom allowed them to reach a lot of people, I think that that's being consistent with other important groups in this township, especially the Board of Education. The other thing I wanted to comment on is as far as the SID. The congressional representative Malinowski was mentioned in an email that we opened that he is being used to help expedite the 501. He also, I noticed, was attending the FAME event. So I just wonder, are we using Congress people rather than our own community to get buy-in for this SID and getting things lined up? I think it really does speak to the deficiency of reaching out to the community and getting the support by having to turn to Congress people to do the job that should have been done. That was approved in August, and the 501 IRS application was done in November. So it looks to me like there was some delay, and now we're using Congress people to get things expedited. I don't think that makes sense. Finally, what are you doing with the ordinance 2577-21 after you heard these impassioned pleas to stop it? You grandfathered Chatham Road, where a sitting TC member has her office, but you failed to do the same for all the residential streets impacted. This is basically screwing our residents over commercial property owners. And the proof is in the various emails that we opened. And I just want to read a couple points that I got. One was from Thursday, June 18th. Thank you, everyone, for being accommodating. This is from a commercial business owner. Landlord and owner of property. Thank you for accommodating and allowing tenant to proceed with his restaurant opening after being shut down for 3 months. He will most definitely apply for any and all permits required for facade signage and changing in the name from blank to blank. He might wait till township approves and memorializes the change in zoning this August, September to expedite his cause versus spending $5,000 and hiring an attorney to appear before the township for site plan. Tenant also recommends Board of Health receive Board of Health approval, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for your cooperation in these most difficult and challenging of times. Okay, so then, again, this was in June of 2020. By law, there's no requirement to make an application to the township. Just more and more, the delay is costing unnecessary hardship and delays from someone who's been shut down. He's legally entitled. Your zoning is causing damages. I mean, just more and more stuff in here about what this landlord pleads as his problem. That's just crazy that we're bending to one landlord to change residential property prices across the board. Finally, I would just want to add, there's somebody sitting up there that's promoting property and selling it, and yet may be voting against the value of their property. That's not right.
Nancy Stone, 10 Fielding Road, Short Hills. First but not least, I want to thank me. I want to thank me for believing in my ethics and principles. I want to thank me for speaking up and Jeff Feld for hearing me. I want to thank me for showing up here at every meeting to hear what is going on with my dear friend Gene Pasternak. I want to thank me for my unwavering persistence, and I want to thank me and my team for all the hard work in exposing the blatant inexperience of Richard Wasserman, Jackie Lieberberg, and yes, you, Tara, the worst representation in the history of Millburn. I want to thank me for choosing the best mentor anyone could ask for. You know who you are. I want to thank me for the determination to show up every meeting until justice is served. And I want to thank Snoop Dogg for inspiring this statement. Tara, I would also like to thank you tonight. I want to thank you for the plastic bag ordinance. I want to thank you for knowingly approving budget line items, specifically Falcone, to the tune of $2 million, and most recently, unnecessary fees to Falcon in the amount of $11,000 for Oprah requests for BPM and Jeff Feld, so we can see your lack of financial savvy. I also want to thank you for voting when you should have abstained, so state ethic conflict of interest charges could be filed against you. I also want to thank you for making it so easy to highlight your poor decisions. I want to thank you for approving illegal SID budgets, making the case for revoking the SID, and paving the way for a better system to engage the business community to energize Millburn. I want to thank you for taking forever getting a 501c3 for the SID. We've been asking for this filing since September of 2020. I want to thank you for doing nothing about enforcing codes and ordinances and letting Millburn seem like the Wild West with all these lawsuits. Eileen David is doing her job. I want to thank you for not supervising Richard and Jackie Strong, and you do not have the 501c3 filing jeopardizing the Main Street application as we've been asking for. You voted on the budget anyway. I want to thank you for highlighting every day that you're no better than any Republican that ever served on this dais. And I want you to thank you for paving the way for Oyen in 167 days.
All right. Does anyone else want to make any public comment tonight? Okay, does any of my fellow committee members want to respond to any of the comments or questions that were made tonight?
Bunch of them.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Go for it.
TC training question came up. When I joined TC, I went through training, and I went through multiple trainings. There are some actually required and some are optional to take. Myself, I've gone through maybe 3 or 4 already, and massive ones all day long, 8 to 4. So that's that. Then bump away. I wasn't sure about that bump away myself.
The what?
The complete street
Oh.
or that parking thing away, raised parking away. I have gotten so many emails, and we have seen what was put in as a survey. And that clearly says people want that parking thing away. So my personal thinking aside, I need to go with what people is asking for. Simple questions are answered right away. If you keep asking opinions and bigger questions, yeah, that takes time, and that takes some kind of legal preview as well to answer those. 125 feet restriction, I think it is still the same. It is there, except you have to go through planning board instead of zoning board, and I would say Mr. McDonald have actually written a Q&A, and if he could also put some light on this as well. Then opt-in versus opt-out on utility aggregation. Yes, it is opt-in because the township is taking, or opt-out because township is taking it, not individual. Overall, it is still a saving, and the price that she gave today, that is for this year, versus what JCP&L has, it is about 10 cents different. So even again, all these questions I'm answering because even I had the same questions, and after understanding more on it, I got more answers myself figured out, or I asked questions from the right people. So those are some of the questions that I could answer, but then other people can answer some of this. Thank you.
Have any?
I think also that woman, Vicky Malloy, said there would be further resident education. I went through this process, so I understand it. You now understand it. It is complicated. It took me a while till I kind of understand, but we do know that there is a savings. We do know that it's a greener component of electricity. And as far as, I mean, years ago we had storms and people were screaming. I think when you were mayor, Mayor Becker, people, don't hide, people were screaming to, like, you know, switch from JCP&L. I don't know what the legality, I don't know how complicated that is, but I know it was, right, talked about anyway. You know, everything's really complicated and things just don't happen in a nanosecond. And I say that we're working really, really hard. We keep all your interests at our forefront, and, you know, we're not going to always agree, but I think we're doing a bang-up job. And I want to thank my committee members for voting to go out for bid for the flex parking. Thank you.
Alex, do you want to elaborate on the 125-foot, rule that's in it? I know that we did send out some Q&A information. I just think that there might be some misunderstandings about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it. The first and foremost, there's a series of frequently asked questions on the township's website, and I think that I've said this multiple times in speaking to this ordinance that, the difficulty in making policy is striking a balance between, two competing interests. Obviously, one is a commercial use, which is important to the township from a tax base, from a vibrancy aspect. We have the large vacancy rates, and then of course the job to protect our residents and make sure that their properties are protected and that they feel comfortable in where they live. To strike that balance is going to be extremely difficult, but I think that the township committee has really put a lot of thought into how best to accomplish that. And to be frank, Millburn is a restrictive community when it comes to commercial property and how that commercial property gets used. I have made reference in the past and about Summit, Maplewood, Westfield, Cranford, all these other communities treating restaurants as a permitted use. And so a permitted use in the sense that they still have to comply with zoning, just like a permitted use here would still have to comply with zoning, with all the other requirements that are set forth in a zone, parking, buffer, whatever it might be. So with this ordinance, a restaurant that is outside more than 125 feet away, that building is more than 125 feet away from a single-family residential lot line, it will be a permitted use. If that building where that restaurant would be located is within 125 feet or closer, it will now be a conditional use, which means that if it can meet the conditions that are set forth in that conditional use standard, I think there are 7 outlined, it will go before the planning board. If it cannot meet one or more of those conditional uses, it will go before the zoning board. There are still parking requirements for each of the business zones with the exception of B4, which there is, in that ordinance is also included a waiver of the parking requirement. And there are still other zoning issues within those zones that need to be adhered to. The big one is that there's a buffer requirement, there's trash requirements, there's lighting requirements, there's mechanical code. There are various things, and if I just do a quick comparison to Summit, and I know this has been brought up to me, but Summit, their restaurants are permitted use in each of their business zones, including their neighborhood business zone, and there are supplementary conditions included in that. We want to, again, I think it's tough. You're always fighting this balance between the residential community and the commercial community, and this ordinance provides the protections that are necessary, which is someone going before a land use board prior to just opening up the doors to a restaurant that's going to be closer than 125 feet to a residential property. But for all those properties that are outside of that 125 foot, it will be permitted. I have not yet come across, in the communities that I've researched, a 125 foot standard. It's not a setback, it's a standard. It's saying if you are within 125 foot, you must do this. If you're outside of 125 foot, you don't have to do. So that's where that ordinance stands. Again, there are frequently asked questions on the website. I'm happy to answer anybody's questions. I've spoken and I will speak further with Mr. Morial and I'm happy to do that.
But a lot of the questions are about Morris Avenue, the B2.
Yep.
The B2. So if there was a vacancy there, I mean, I know there may be a few one-offs, but would that trigger the 125 foot?
A lot of them do, yeah, but there are some that don't. There are some, they're like the bank that sits on at Morris Turnpike. It's not within 125 feet.
But a lot of the commercial properties that line Morris Avenue, most of those would trigger the 125 foot.
Absolutely.
And that would have to go to a land use board.
Correct. But the former Wells Fargo or the former Walgreens next to King's would not.
Yeah, but the ones on Morris Avenue, B2, they would trigger that, and we would have protection there for
Right.
the residents.
And all of the properties on the north side of Upper Millburn Avenue would trip land use board. All the properties on the south side would be permitted uses.
Right, I see.
Not right now. Thank you. Does anybody have any other? Yes.
Just following up on what Alex said, and to the gentleman's comment, I want to be sure you understood that both what he and I said in connection with the conversation about prohibiting rooftop decks and variances. What we said is anyone can always apply for a variance. Getting one is a whole other story. And I can tell you, as an instructor for many years of the land use courses, being a land use attorney, the burden that would be on anybody attempting to get a variance from that requirement would be practically insurmountable.
So no, we can't do that, but we're about to end the meeting very soon, and then you can have all the conversation that you want to. Is there anybody else, any other committee members want to make any, answer any questions or make any comments to anything that was raised during public comment? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, good night, Millburn Township.
Thank you.
Good night, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.